Hello. So it's 12. So I want to start this session today. Thank you for joining us today for Island Innovation Demo Day 2021. My name is Takaho Iwasaki from Magic Connection, and I am a co-organizer for today's event. This event is also co-organized by Engawa Kyoto, which is a co-working and business creating place operated by Dentsu. Island Innovation Demo Day is a two-day event where we bring entrepreneurs, investors, corporations, and startups from Hawaii and Japan to showcase and discuss innovations, technology, business ideas to challenge ESG, which are environmental, social, and governance problems in the island community. Today is our second day, which is our conference day. During today's event, we will have many speakers here virtually who are experts from various sectors from both Hawaii and Japan. They will discuss how to leverage their collective assets in order to develop innovative technologies which will help communities in Japan and Hawaii to thrive. The event is simultaneously translated into Japanese and the live stream to a lot of Japanese people too. 今、英語でお聞きの方で、日本語でお聞きされたい視聴者の方は、Zoom 機能ボタンの地球マークの日本語というチャンネルからご視聴ください。Before going to the main part of this event, I'd like to explain this event and go over some housekeeping. We established Island Innovation Demo Day in 2019 to enhance technology and innovation that can help island communities, economics, and business to thrive. Hawaii and Japan have a lot of similarities in culture, geography, business, and people. So our second mission is to connect Hawaii and Japan and create an ecosystem and a community to accelerate innovation and technology, boost the economy, and enhance our island culture together. Our focus is especially on startups, entrepreneurs, and youth who are eager to explore the opportunity and create a better future for the island community. During the yesterday events, we heard 6 amazing startups from Hawaii pitch their technology, islands, and business that provide solutions to challenge environmental, social, and governance problems in island communities. If you missed yesterday's event, please stay tuned for the email we will send out after today's event so you can watch the recorded events. This is a rough timetable for today. Please note that this is just an estimate for the schedule, so it might be changed. We have great partnerships with various companies from Japan and Hawaii, Box Jelly, Blue Startups, Ginza Scratch, and Black Belt Legal Inc. to make this event better. We also have a great partner providing interpretation, Dreamcatcher, and the Japan Medical Interpreter Company to make this event available in Japanese too. If you're interested in the service and business of our partners, including Dreamcatcher, please feel free to contact them from the contact information on a digital brochure that you can download from the QR code or the chat link. This info brochure includes startup information from the pitch yesterday too. And you can download the digital brochure that is the corner of this QR code on my background here. One more thing before I move to the main part of the program. The event is recorded and will be published to people who missed this live stream. If you don't want to disclose your name, but still ask the speaker's question, please ask your question anonymously. The questions are welcome at the older speaker session during our Q&A time. However, please understand that we'll have limited time for those for that. So we might not be able to accept all of the questions. All right, I want to welcome the first speaker and moderator of the first session, the future of EV in island communities. I want to welcome Chenoa Farnsworth, who is the moderator for the session. Chenoa is the managing partner of Blue Startup and top 20 US Accelerator Tech Launch located in Honolulu, Hawaii. She has also served the community as the chair of the Women Fund of Hawaii, director of Hawaii Venture Capital Association, director of the Entrepreneurs Foundation of Hawaii, director of Impact Hub Honolulu, and a judge for the University of Hawaii Business Fund competition. Hi, Chenoa. Are you ready to be the moderator for the first session Island Innovation Demo Day?
I'm ready.
Sorry, Hilo is coordinating your video right now.
Okay.
Chenoa, the video works or?
Yep.
Great. So I'm passed to the Chenoa to moderate this session.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Chenoa Farnsworth, and I think Kaho did a great job introducing myself. So we'll just jump into it. We're going to have our two panelists, Nick and Glenn, introduce themselves as well. I'll start with Nick. Nick, go ahead and introduce yourself. I think Nick has a few slides to share with us as well.
Okay, sure. Thanks for having me. Let me share a slide. How does it look? Can you see it?
We can see it.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much for having me. I'm Nick Sugimoto. I'm the CEO of Honda Innovations. And also, I am a corporate venturing supervisor of Honda Motors headquarters. Honda Innovations is Honda's open innovation outpost based in Silicon Valley, Mountain View, California. And this is the headquarters of Honda's global open innovation initiative, basically collaborating with startups mainly, and create new value, new technology, new business together. Sometimes that includes investment, and sometimes it includes M&A. So it's sort of corporate venturing / corporate development type of activity. Let me share a few slides here. So Honda is not just a car company. Honda does a lot of motorcycles, and recently we launched a Honda Jet aircraft and jet engine as well. And on automobile, we provide multiple choices of powertrain, not just internal combustion engine power plant, but also hybrid, and also electric, and fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cell. As the Open Innovation headquarters, we run a program called Honda Excelerator. And in Excelerator, we focus on these areas where startups' competency and advantage and Honda's future needs actually intersect. So a lot of AI, IT, human-machine interface type of electronics related domain, as well as energy is a big part of our interest. And we provide to our partner startups not only just funding, but also all the resources they need to collaborate with Honda. And we also provide Honda's domain knowledge and expertise by having our engineers or business unit person to join that project together. We have satellite offices outside Silicon Valley, Europe, in China, Japan, and Israel. And also, so far we did one acquisition. We probably do at any moment, probably tens of projects simultaneously with the startups from all over the place. These are kind of short list of examples of our partners. We have worked with much more, many more companies. All right, this is a kind of brief introduction of Honda Innovations and the Honda Excelerator. The power of united dreams means the dreams united from Honda as well as from the innovators. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nick. And next we'll have Scott introduce himself.
Thanks, Chenoa. Aloha, everyone. Tako, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this today. Good to see you again, Nick. It's an honor to be with everyone. Normally would be calling in from Hawaii, but I'm actually in Iceland at the moment. So wearing a sweater still. It's a little cold. Interestingly, Iceland has the second highest number of EVs behind Norway. And so been seeing a lot of EVs and charging stations all over Reykjavik. But normally when I'm in Hawaii, I'm leading the Hawaii State Energy Office, and I serve as the governor's chief energy officer for the state of Hawaii. And the Hawaii State Energy Office was recreated about 2 years ago. Before that, it used to be a part of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. Today, we're attached to it, but report directly to the governor now. And we have a new defined mission, which is to promote energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean transportation to help achieve a resilient, clean energy economy. And breaking that down, really what we're responsible for is energy security, energy efficiency, renewable energy, all forms of clean transportation, decarbonizing our economy, and providing data and analytics to help innovators and business and economic development. To do that, the office is organized into two main groups, one focusing on energy efficiency and renewable energy, especially with project facilitation, retiring our coal plant and fossil fuel plants, and ensuring that we have the reliable renewable energy that we need. The other major group is focused on resiliency, clean transportation, and analytics. And they do a lot of our EV work. Within that group, for example, they're responsible for the Hawaii share of the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust Fund settlement. This is money that states received after the US sued Volkswagen for violating the Clean Air Act on its vehicle emissions efficiency. And these are the types of funds that we use to help replace diesel vehicles with zero emission vehicles. We've recently launched a new program working with our State Department of Health and the US EPA, where we've combined those VW dollars with Federal Diesel Exhaust Reduction Act, or DERA funds. That way we're able to leverage multiple pots of money to help create the funding for our local governments to replace their public transportation, their buses, from diesel buses to electric or zero emission buses. We're engaged in a lot of efforts across the state on numerous fronts. But I do want to just highlight a couple of things about that. Is because we're also trying to bring economic development, innovation, equity, and community engagement to all of these activities for energy. We've realized more and more how important it is to have the community's voice at the seat of the table when important decisions are being made. And we're looking for ways to help marry that spirit of innovation and the ability to move, with also making sure that we can bring folks along and allow space for folks to lead as well. Just a note about emissions and why it's so important to talk about EVs and ground transportation. In Hawaii, our emissions, about 85% of emissions are energy related. And then within our emissions, about 25% are ground transportation specifically. So focusing on cars is a really important part of decarbonizing Hawaii's economy. We also, and from an equity point of view, believe that cars, electric cars, should be something that are accessible to people of all income levels, as well as the ability to charge them. So we do a lot of work with trying to support the broader adoption of EVs. And this year we did some analytics and brought some new data to the conversation along these lines. So the state just passed some new legislation this year. One of them was committing the state's own public fleet to convert to zero emission vehicles by 2035 for passenger vehicles. We also put in place a commitment of our barrel tax, which we put on oil, to allocate 3 cents to support a rebate program for installing EV chargers in private property, mainly aimed at LMI communities, multifamily businesses, small businesses. That 3 cents translates into about $750,000 a year. And that's Hawaii's own commitment, separate from whatever was just passed in the federal government Build Back Better bills. And then lastly, one thing that's kind of an innovation for Hawaii on the policy front is that we've committed ourselves as state employees that when we travel and we go to rent a car, if the rental car company has an EV available, then the state employee will get it. Ideally, tourists will be renting the EVs, and we're taking steps to help promote that. But as a fallback, in case no tourists do take the EVs, we're working on making sure that the state is coming up and providing that guaranteed market to support EV adoption among our rental car companies, and in turn, increase more exposure for people to using EVs. So stop there and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Scott. Like you, Scott, I'm cold. I'm in New York City today, so I'm not at home either. All the Hawaii speakers are not in Hawaii today. It's funny. All right, so let's get into this discussion. I'm going to share my screen. We have a few kind of background slides that we want to share with you folks. Let's see if I can do that. Hold on. Oops. All right. So let me play this. Can you guys see okay? The slides, are they up?
We can see them, but not in presenter view.
Yeah, that is, why isn't it? Okay, maybe full screen. No. Okay, interesting. Uh-oh. All right, let's see. Well, I'm not sure why we can't get it into the full screen mode, but hopefully you can see that. Maybe Takaho or somebody over there can help figure out what's the issue.
I think this is fine. I can just see the other slide, but
see.
this is fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So just again, a little background for the audience on kind of what's happening in Hawaii with regards to EVs. So an important part of our discussion around kind of the ability for EVs to contribute, you know, to a zero emissions plan. So this is a snapshot of our energy and where it comes from today in Hawaii. So, you know, the summary of this, if you can't see it very well, is that we're incredibly dependent on fossil fuels. So that's the bottom line. So we do get a lot of questions around EVs. If I'm plugging that into my house, but my house is being electrified via, you know, petroleum, is that really an environmental decision? Is that the right thing to do? So, we have a lot of those kinds of controversies. So maybe we can kind of jump into that. I'm going to stop sharing real quick and ask you guys kind of that fundamental question about the environmental aspect of EVs. I know this is, people go round and round on it. Well, it's really not that much better because of the manufacturing of it and because of where the energy has to come from to charge your car, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd love to get our panelists' opinions about that. Maybe we'll start with Scott on that one.
Thanks. Yeah, this is a question that we get a lot as well at the Energy Office. So what's kind of helpful is to think about emissions from a gas-powered car versus an EV. And when you buy a gas-powered car, it has a certain level of emissions and energy efficiency that it basically is going to stay that way for the life of the car, and probably will degrade over time as the engine gets older. An EV doesn't have that, doesn't have tailpipe emissions that like a gas-powered car does. But like you said, people recognize that the EV is charged from the grid. And if the grid isn't 100% renewable energy, then is it really better than driving a gas-powered car? So, it's a moving target is the real answer. And it depends on how efficient the gas-powered car is compared to the percent of renewable on the grid. And where we are in Hawaii, each island is its own grid and has a different amount of renewables. So I'll just kind of speak generally, is that right now, if we take into account battery manufacturing and the end of life disposal of batteries and those kinds of emissions, we try to look at a whole life cycle analysis. The EPA and others have said generally EVs have overall lower lifetime emissions. And that's because when you're relying on the grid, it's a point in time at the beginning, but the grid, if we're doing our job right, is getting greener every year. And so as you drive your EV every year, you're relying less and less on fossil fuels because it's becoming more reliant on renewable energy. Now, some people actually have rooftop solar, especially in Hawaii, and they have enough that they can charge their car, in which case they're as clean as it gets. There might be, a few years worth of emissions savings that occur because of what it takes to produce the PV and the battery. But again, the life cycle cost of emissions over the life of that car is lower for an EV, especially when you have rooftop solar. And that's the thing, right? Is that at the end of the day, gas cars that are purchased today will always have the same level of efficiency. And they will have that level of emissions. Over time, manufacturers improve efficiency, but that car that you buy is going to stay where it is when you buy it. Whereas an EV every year will get greener and greener and greener. And so it actually helps support the overall effort as well. Nick, I don't know if you might have some observations or other ideas about that.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, this is a big problem. And of course, only car company cannot solve this problem. We can take care on the vehicle side, but on the grid side, of course, the government initiative plays a big role. Yeah, so having said that, on our part, electrifying the powertrain is definitely the way we have been going, and also we will continue to go. As everybody knows, hybrid has been a big improvement of emission against the conventional pure engine automobiles. But still, engine runs in a car, so there is some emission, of course. So industry is shifting gear toward full electric. In a large picture, yes, I agree that electric vehicle gets greener as the entire ecosystem gets greener. But the vehicle itself actually degrades, particularly the battery on the car. as you go through the charge discharge cycles, and also even just parking a car in a garage for a long time, still the battery degrades over time. So yeah, it's there are still many technological challenges on electric vehicle. It's almost like, if I compare that with the conventional gas engine car, it's like your gas tank is shrinking every year as you use. So, which is not usually acceptable by our customer. So a lot of new breakthrough is needed for battery side on the car. So it's still, I wouldn't say it's still work in progress product, but there is a lot of improvement needed on the electric vehicle too.
And so just to kind of expand on that, I want to share my screen again. And we're going to put up these some quotes from a Toyota. It's not Honda, but Toyota. This is not to disparage Nick's company, but a certain perspective about, right, the contribution of EVs to climate solutions. And I'm wondering, Nick, just to expand on that, do you have any kind of reaction to this perspective that was shared from the Toyota chairman, and maybe is Honda taking a different approach, or do you think that these comments are kind of valid about how EV is not necessarily solving the problem, but maybe perhaps continuing to contribute to the problem?
I'm not really in a position to comment on our competitors' president. But Toyota obviously is one of the largest car companies in the world. Of course, Japan's leading car company, and they're probably 2 times bigger than Honda in terms of number of vehicles being produced each year. They employ a lot of people, and car industry is really the center of Japan industry. So yeah, he's speaking for almost Japan as a whole. I think so. If Toyota totally shifts to full electric, well, they don't produce engines anymore, and the engine is the biggest part of a car, and they produce engines in-house, of course, and Honda as well. So that means a lot of people will lose jobs, and supply chain will be totally restructured. It needs to be restructured because engine parts suppliers don't have any business anymore. So yeah, the impact to the economy and employment is going to be huge, and it's not just for Japan. Any big car producing countries, U.S. as well, and Europe as well. It's pretty much the same. So I guess he is speaking from that perspective, not just a car company perspective. So I don't necessarily agree or disagree on his comment, but overall, totally shifting to electric vehicle will impact a number of parts of economy and society, good and bad, both. So yeah, this is probably the pain we need to figure out how we go through over the next couple of decades as we move toward carbon neutral society. Yeah, it's a big change.
And Nick, do you think that Japan has a different perspective on this problem than the US, for example?
Well, as Scott touched upon, the energy source is a big problem. Right now, Japan, since the big earthquake, after that, we shut down all the nuclear power plants because of that big accident in Fukushima. So Japan is very, very cautious reopening the nuclear power plants right now. And right now, almost totally, Japan is dependent on coal, on power generation. Renewable energy is still very small. So US is a little bit different. So that kind of difference in the background as an energy source probably impacts the policy of each country. But as a car company, we do our part, definitely. Yeah, so yes, electric vehicle is the big target. And recently, we got a new CEO in April, and he made a big statement about our commitment to stop producing combustion engine cars by 2040.
Right.
Which is a huge impact, but we will figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Now, Scott, I know you just got back from the COP26, so I'm curious, also kind of being exposed there to some global thinking about the EVs, and did you pick up on kind of different perspectives or different opinions based on kind of geography and other things like infrastructure that Nick has talked about, the energy sources, the like that may influence people's opinion on EV adoption?
The COP was certainly an interesting experience. EVs were prominent, and Glasgow had set up electric buses to run people from the event space back to the hotel and city center area. So that was interesting, and I think it helped people get very comfortable with the idea of an electric bus and being able to ride on one. In terms of, kind of what Nick was just saying, the supply chains are definitely a question. This is a global issue right now, is sourcing the material that we will need for renewable energy technologies. And, in Hawaii, we have 1 million cars. And are we going to replace 1 million cars with 1 million EVs? Is that really the future that we're looking at in the next 15 years? I think for us, we would like to see some level of mode shift happen, where we can encourage more people to use buses, to walk, bicycle. Hopefully rail gets turned on by then, and so more people can use the rail. But simply replacing 1 million cars with 1 million cars in 15 years is a really big effort with a lot of resourcing that will need to happen. And I'm sure Nick's company would very much like to be able to sell 1 million of those cars. But, we're a small island, and we already have immense traffic. So, the opportunities we can create for other types of transportation, I think, are important too. And that came up at the COP, that we definitely need to pursue electrification of transportation, but not just single passenger automobile type. It needs to be a broader discussion.
Makes sense. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to talk a little bit about the big news in the EV space, which was the IPO of Rivian. And in addition to that, of course, the immense valuation of Tesla. So these two companies, which are effectively startups in the EV space, have now, from at least a market cap perspective, surpassed some of our mainstay and old school car manufacturers, both in the US and Japan, really globally. So I'm wondering if you guys can comment on this. Can the old school car companies compete? Do they get into this game? Do they get into a different game? How do they evolve with this coming wave, it seems, of interest in EVs and adoption of EVs globally? Nick, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, it's quite impressive how big their market cap is. Yeah. Now Honda is such a tiny company. So, yeah, definitely. As the existing car makers move toward electric, and these new entrants who don't really have any legacy problem, just to build the company around the electric and sell the products directly to consumers, which actually the conventional car makers are not allowed to do it by law. So we can't really sell cars to consumers directly. We need to go through the dealership.
Interesting. But wait just a minute, because I did not know that, Nick. That's so interesting. So, but Tesla can, or
Yeah.
how why is it different for them?
Well, it's federal and state laws in the United States, and many countries have similar regulations to protect the dealership. And when the law was made, like, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, big car companies were regarded as a kind of enemy of antitrust. So they control the retail price, they control the margin of dealership, basically. So they saw the big car companies are enemy of the society. So they created this law basically to take away the power from car makers of setting the price or control the channel or retails. So retails, dealerships are totally independent from car makers.
Interesting. Is there any move afoot to change any of that, given this new competitive landscape?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and existing car companies already have dealership network in all states. And if a car company has one dealer in a state, this car company is not allowed to do direct to consumer sales. So Tesla started from scratch. They don't have any dealership, so they have the freedom to sell the products to the end consumer directly. And their stores are not really stores. Their stores are either showroom or service depot. So yeah, their business model is a little bit different from existing car makers, which creates a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit unfair ground competition. So maybe, I don't know, in the future, all car companies can sell products directly to consumers. But anyway, that doesn't happen anytime soon. So so that's one kind of example of legacy we have, but they don't. Other than that, we also have probably legacy advantage over new entrants. We have long history of making cars. We know all the know-hows and which part breaks first and which part should be replaced in what cycle. So our knowledge and experience dealing with cars, regardless of the types of the powertrain, and also serving customers and building a brand, that definitely should help our transition, from pure gas-based cars into electric. And Honda and probably Toyota as well are known for electrified advanced powertrain. For example, hybrid. We are the first companies who introduced that hybrid, very complicated system actually, to improve the gas mileage and improve the carbon emission. So yeah, all of those. And hybrid cars have batteries on board, so we know how to deal with batteries as well. So the battery management is kind of our proprietary know-how. To what extent do we charge the battery and is allowed to discharge, what kind of window we should use to minimize the degradation. That kind of know-how and knowledge is very proprietary. And that's accumulated over a number of years of producing and servicing the hybrid powertrain. So yeah, I would say welcome to the new startups. They are no longer startups anymore. And yeah, definitely let's compete. Let's work together to make the society a better place. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Scott, any comments on this this new playing field here with the new entrants in the EV space?
Sure. And market caps are a little outside my professional jurisdiction, so I won't comment on that. We at the Energy Office in the state recently leased some Teslas, and it got some news. And what was going on was the state decided to try an innovative procurement approach. Instead of purchasing vehicles and maintaining them for the life of the vehicles, we decided instead to set up a leasing structure where we wanted to lease EVs and charging stations. And so we put out a bid, we put out a request for proposals, we selected a vendor, and that vendor in turn, what they do is they bundle up state orders for EVs, and the county governments also can participate in this. And then they put out a request for quotes from the different manufacturers for who can provide the best price on a per mile basis to provide the EV and the charging station. And so when we put that request out, we went to all the OEMs that we do business with as the state and asked for a quote. And Tesla was the one that came back with the best price by far. And so, and what they understood in that contract, which I think the others didn't on the first round, was they basically bundled the price of the car and the charger together. Whereas pretty much every other OEM gave us a standalone quote for the car and a standalone quote for the charging station. And added together, it exceeded the bundled price of what Tesla had provided. So our first purchase order was for Teslas, but it won't only be Teslas. As the state moves into doing more purchase orders through this contract, each time we'll put out that request for quotes, and then it'll come back. And so we might be purchasing Chevys, we might be purchasing Hondas. It'll just depend on who comes back with the best quote at the time we're putting it out there. So that's a little bit of innovative procurement from the state's point of view for the state fleet. But I also just want to note that in Hawaii, Toyota and Honda are the two most popular manufacturers across the state, period, hands down. I think Tesla cracks the top 10, but 1, 2, and 3 are Toyota, 4 is Honda, 5 is Toyota, and 6 is Honda. So, basically, I think the CRV, it's supposed to go electric. People are excited about that. They're waiting for the electric CRV. I think if a Toyota Tacoma ever comes out that's electric, it'll be game over in Hawaii. Everyone will want an electric truck. Just, it's finished. We won't have the discussion anymore.
Yes, very true. Everyone knows if you buy a Honda in Hawaii, you are running a risk of getting it stolen, basically, because they're so popular. Okay, so I want to get to some of our audience questions. We have a question here from Noel Morin that's pretty interesting. He says, what role do you see the electric vehicle playing in the decarbonization of the grid? The relevant technology is evolving to the point where the mass EVs might be helping with intermittent energy and that sort of thing. I'm assuming he's talking about using the EVs as batteries, which I think is a very interesting concept, and love to get your take on that. Scott, maybe we can start with you.
Sure, I think that is the direction we're headed with them. Hawaiian Electric, the utility here on several of the islands, not all of them, but I think KIUC on Kauai might be thinking about this too. just initiated a request to our Public Utilities Commission for a new program for EV charging rates. And one of the express parts of that new program is the ability to do storage and help increase the penetration of renewables to the grid by using the cars as batteries. At the Energy Office, we also see the cars, EVs, as a form of energy resilience and security too. Because if you have an EV at home and you get cut off from the grid, a bad storm knocks down your power lines, or something happens, you can plug your car into your house, and you can run off of it. And so that's going to be an important step, especially for our remote communities, especially in like Big Island and Kauai or Molokai, where the grids can be pretty fragile. So having that battery in the form of the car is really important.
I'm excited about that. We have 3 electric cars, so I figure if we can figure out a way to reverse engineer that and power our house with it, or and we have solar as well. So if there's a way we can kind of combine all these things, right, to create a completely self-sustaining little system, that would be pretty awesome. Nick, you have comments about that as well in terms of the kind of interaction between EVs and the grid and
definitely V2H, V2G. Yeah, this is exactly the way we will design the electric vehicles in the future, capable to store energy and provide energy back to the grid or back to the house. As I said earlier, the battery on the car is going to be bigger and bigger. So definitely this is a good energy storage device that moves, and it may not need to move for V2G or V2H. But there's a big storage anyway, so this will mitigate the supply and demand gap nicely. You can charge the vehicle maybe at night, and during the peak demand hour you can also tap into the power in your car to offload the grid power. So yeah, this is definitely important piece in terms of entire energy ecosystem and cycle. Yeah, but for our engineers, it's a bit of a headache, to be honest. That means more charge and discharge cycles on the battery.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's tough for the car. So we need to design the battery pack and battery systems and the battery management system more carefully, not to degrade the body of the car too much. Yeah.
And a related question for you, Nick, from the audience. Again, the question is Honda going to expand its business into more energy sectors like Tesla? So how Tesla has the energy wall and or the power wall, or whatever they call it, can't remember. But yeah, that's the question. Are you move beyond, I guess, vehicles into kind of more energy production?
Definitely, yes. We are already in many business areas, as I showed in my slide. It's unfortunately it's a combustion engine base, but we produce power generator, portable power generator, and we provide a lot number of different types of power products as well. And then we actually, in some houses in Japan, have a Honda power conditioner, which sits in the house and between the solar panel and the grid. So yeah, we are already in that business, and definitely that's our future.
Very good. I also wanted to ask another question about kind of public policy. Scott, we were talking a little bit in our introductory section about public policy in Hawaii, and it's a subject near and dear to my heart because as our panelists know, and I shared this when we were doing our prep call, Blue Startups invested in a company called Volta Charging, which got it started in Hawaii and just recently went public on the NYSE. It is an electric car charging network. And it got its start in Hawaii in part because of the public policy that drove that EV adoption in Hawaii. We had a very early, I think probably one of the earliest in the country, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, laws on the books that required public parking lots to have EV charging. So I think that really created some, energy around the EV adoption in Hawaii, in addition to it being a very good place for EVs. Obviously, we're an island, we don't have very far to go. So there's some built-in advantages there. But Scott, I wonder if you can comment on kind of some of the new thinking in Hawaii about public policy around driving EV adoption and, kind of what we can look forward to there.
Thanks. And, as I mentioned, we just passed these new laws to commit the state itself to using rental cars, as well as converting the public fleet, with the idea that we're going to help by using this contract I mentioned with leasing vehicles, by working with rental car companies to provide that state level of commitment to a market, that will actually get EVs out into the general public faster too, because the state as a leasing entity and these rental car companies usually don't keep individual cars longer than a couple years. So after 2 or 3 years, they will enter the resale market. And we're trying to work with our vendors to commit to having those cars be resold in Hawaii. And I think one of the ways that will help is because there is the perception that EVs are expensive. They are on the upper end of cost right now, although they're quickly becoming price competitive. Probably in a couple of years, the point of purchase will be equivalent. And then with whatever rebates Congress has just passed, that will help with the point of purchase. Life cycle cost, they're already cheaper. And I want to just note, I saw in the comments that Oahu is not the state, and that's right, we're very aware of it. And I apologize if my comments came across that way. I think I mentioned the 1 million cars, which is just Oahu and the rail. But public policy-wise, we're trying to think about solutions that work for each island. And so on Hawaii Island, for example, because of the long distances, driving over Saddle Road from Hilo to Kona, going down to Puna and Captain Cook, these are some long distances that the rest of the islands, especially Oahu, for example, don't really have range anxiety. But Big Island, we still do have that concern. And Big Island as well is also looking at using hydrogen for the bus fleet rather than electrifying them. And that's because of the distances involved in the hills and the mountains and the volcanoes and everything that's over there. So, we're going to watch that take shape, and we'll be working with the local county governments as well to help support them with the directions they see that fit their local needs too. Because we don't want to just do one size fits all or just do Oahu solutions. Each island will have to be tweaked and adjusted to fit its needs and its populations.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And the hydrogen bus actually is something that we've talked about for a long time, especially for the Big Island. So hopefully we can get that off the ground. And I know Nick and Honda certainly have a lot of expertise in hydrogen. So that's another area that we haven't fully realized for the future of transportation, and maybe it's still coming our way. We don't really know at this point, right? But it's certainly something to keep working on. Nick, any comments on that, and then we'll wrap up here.
Yeah, these days electric and battery-based vehicles are kind of big trend, but still a lot of problems with that solution. And I would say it's probably better to have multiple options as a society, depending on what kind of applications you're talking about, for a passenger vehicle or a big fleet truck or bus or train, any types of adaptation. You know, each one has different needs and different characteristics. So it's probably better as a society to have multiple technology options. And we have been working on hydrogen powertrain for many, many years. And you know, we think that's probably good for a little bit bigger vehicle, like a truck or bus, than a small compact passenger vehicle. So hydrogen has its own problem, of course. Infrastructure is a big problem, and how do you create hydrogen? That's another big problem. But yeah, hopefully eventually we'll figure it out.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we are out of time, so we're going to wrap it up there and thank our panelists. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Scott, very much for joining us today, and hope our audience got something out of it, learned something. I certainly did. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you very much, Nick, Scott, and Chenoa. Was a great insight. So moving to the next session. Sorry, hold a second. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Sorry, hold a second. Sorry about that. There's technical issues. Okay. The next session is actually excited. So the next session is the Women Empowerment and the Climate Change session. One of the reasons why we have decided to discuss the topic is due to the report from UN, which found that women are increasingly being seen as more vulnerable than men to the impacts of climate change, mainly because they represent the majority of the world's poor and are proportionally more dependent on the threatened natural resources. I understand this is more of a problem in developing countries, but I wanted to know how our female speakers in the startups or energy industry handle or recognize gender issues in the regions. I would like to discuss and explore the options for how we can help the community to leverage gender equality in order to challenge climate change. Now, I have 4 amazing speakers for this session. Chenoa, again, as a moderator, thank you for joining these 2 sessions. And Yuko Masuda from Marubeni Power International, Tiffany from Elementary Excelerator, and Makiko from Acario Innovation. After this session, I'm going to serve as moderator. Aloha, everybody. Are you guys ready for the session? So I believe the speaker have prepared their own introduction for the session. So without further ado, I wanted to welcome all of the speakers, and I wanted to ask each of the speakers to present their organization and themselves. Chenoa, would you like to take a break a little bit, or you want to go first?
I can go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
No problem. Yep. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go through a little deck. And this is really about more so about Blue Startups, but also our interaction with the sustainability industry. You guys see my slides okay?
Perfect.
All right. So Blue Startups is a venture accelerator located in Honolulu, Hawaii. We are, we believe, the nexus between North America and Asia for entrepreneurial activity, primarily in the tech world. So we have We run an accelerator program. We've been in business since 2013. So we've now just graduated our 13th cohort. Actually, today is our last day in the program. We were ranked in the top 20 in the US for accelerators. We've looked at over 5,000 applications. We have accepted 99 companies into our program. Those companies have gone on to raise $330 million in follow-on funding. We have also created over 650 jobs. And we just celebrated our first IPO. If you tuned into the last session, you know, that was with Volta Charging, an electric car charging station network. So very excited about that. We've been a member of the Global Accelerator Network since we started in 2013. My team, myself, my background primarily in investing, Hank Rogers and Maya Rogers, who are Hank is the founder of the Tetris company. Yes, the video game company that is headquartered in Honolulu, Hawaii. Very little known fact. It is a global licensing company, but it is in Hawaii. And Maya Rogers, who is his daughter, and she is now the CEO of Tetris. So some of our partners, of course, the Tetris company that I mentioned, very importantly, the state of Hawaii through the HTDC and the retirement system of Hawaii are both investors in Blue Startups. I'm very grateful for them. The Ulupono Initiative, Hawaii Business Roundtable, and Hawaii Angels are some of our other partners. Our program is 12 weeks in Hawaii, 1 week in San Francisco. This year we mixed it up. We're actually in New York this week. It's a little more open. People are doing in-person meetings here versus San Francisco is still pretty shut down. So we came to New York this year. We have 160 mentors in our global network. We provide our companies with over $1 million in perks when they're in the program, and we invest up to $100,000 into each company. We also provide them with vetted service providers and access to customers and introductions. We also host the annual East Meets West conference. Takaho and I have collaborated on this a couple of years, and we'll be hopefully collaborating again. Yes, 2022. Last year, 2021, it was virtual. Hopefully, or 2022 will be in person. It's a 2-day event, bringing together investors and entrepreneurs from both sides of the Pacific, meeting right here in the middle in Hawaii. Here's a snapshot of some of our portfolio companies. Again, all over the map, most of them technology companies. We do focus on these 6 sustainability goals that are driven by the UN sustainability goals. Our founder focus, Hawaii first, female founders, and the East-West founder. Our sectors, travel, SaaS, and sustainability, so software and sustainability. And then looking a little deeper at the sustainability sector, we've invested now in 7 companies, 6 of them founded in Hawaii and doing business in Hawaii. We do think this is a competitive advantage and that Hawaii is a great place to do this type of work. And we think, we hope they will stay and continue to build here in Hawaii. I think that's it. Yes, that's it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you. So next, Yuko can go next.
So let me put up my screen first. Let me know when you.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Is it working okay with this way?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Hi everyone. My name is Yuko Masuda, the Business Development Manager based in Silicon Valley and for Marubeni Corporation. And it is such my pleasure to join this incredible set of women for this discussion today. Now, let me start from introducing who Marubeni Corporation is. Some of you might have heard the name like a Sogo Shosha in Japanese, but that means it is like a major Japanese trading and investment business conglomerate. So Marubeni is known for diverse business line and the global network. So we are handling products, projects, and sometimes services in a broad range of the industry in 69 countries around the globe. Since foundation more than a century ago, we have served people, society, industry, and the world under the credo, fairness, innovation, and harmony. There's like a Chinese character on the bottom that's the Japanese version of that credo. But I believe our wide range of the business coverage confirm the history of our endeavor to enrich the life of the people on the planet. But the question we have these days is, are we serving the earth? Are we truly serving the climate, enrich the life of the next generation? Are we consuming the future to enrich the life of ours today? So under the slogan, building a better tomorrow, Marubeni is determined to use its existing presence across the industry as a competitive advantage to help building a new value chain, solving social and environmental issues. So Marubeni has been an expert of connective foods in need with food health solutions, expertise in orchestrating multiple stakeholders to deliver goods and services globally, but in a local way is what we are proud of. And we have built a global presence across value chains as well as people on the ground to make sure that we deliver things hands-on. So we have been doing this since long before the word globalization was even born. So here I am showing an example of the area that we identify as the area that's necessary to change to accelerate the energy transformation, which I think is a different way of saying the climate change. This includes area traditionally we have heavily rely on utilities like grid operation of cybersecurity, as well as like the area more close to the customers, like distributed energy or the industry decarbonization. Yes, the change is necessary in quite a broad range. So that is why we believe open innovation has a critical role in the transition. We engage with the customer with variety of decarbonization needs, such as industry energy users who has like emission reduction goal, or investors who has the ESG investment appetite, or the utilities, the municipalities who are the one to support the infrastructure to support those changes. So to accommodate such like a vast but unique decarbonization needs, Marubeni is here to be the orchestrator to facilitate the multiple cutting-edge solutions to be packaged up to be delivered as a like a one package service for customers in need. So you can see the list of innovative companies Marubeni has partnered with today. Marubeni is trying to accommodate more diverse needs by growing the portfolio of innovative small solutions. So what we value is a strategic relationship with who share the view with us. Therefore, we have the partner with the startups from early to late stages, from the United States, Tanzania, Estonia, or Hawaii more. We don't have anyone yet from Hawaii, so I'm very looking forward to find partner from this like a beautiful discussion today. Anyone who want to get access to the variety of customers around the globe in needs, contact me. You could be the next one to collaborate with the orchestrator committed to change the energy industry. So I'm very looking forward for the meeting with a variety of different players today. Very nice to meet you all.
Thank you very much. So maybe next, Tiffany, can you go next, please?
Can you all see my screen there?
Yes, it's just not the presenter view, but
There we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Better? Great.
Better, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Tiffany Huynh here from Elemental Accelerator. I'm the Director of External Affairs and so excited to be here on this panel. Thank you to Kaho for inviting me today. So a bit about Elemental Accelerator, really similar to Blue Startups. We started around 2009. We exist to redesign the systems at the root of climate change. And we do that through our support of startups and entrepreneurs because we truly, truly believe that entrepreneurs are wired to quickly, create solutions that can come to the market. And two of the gaps that we fill is that we provide first of its kind funding to help climate technologies come to the market. And, when we first started, one of the gaps that we really saw is that, there's a lot of research and development funding, and then there's funding, like after companies really scale and commercialize, but there's that gap there where you need to find that first or second customer to really prove out your technologies. And that's where we come in. And so actually, over 50% of our portfolio, after we pulled them, showed that we were either their first or second project deployment to help them come into the market. So that's really, really exciting. And the other thing is, we really consider ourselves as a platform that works at the intersection or nexus of innovation and social equity. So when we look at all of our companies that come into the portfolio and also the projects that we do out in the community, we really ask, how is this helping or serving frontline communities to be able to access technologies faster than they would normally be able to? Because one of the things that we truly believe is that the best solutions will be the most equitable ones. These are the sectors that we work in. So we support companies, or we support climate tech companies that really work in the sectors that affect all of our daily lives. So that's energy, agriculture, water, mobility, and industry, or what we call circular economy. And when you take, a look at the pie of how all of these sectors play into the world's global emissions, these are the largest emitting sectors out there. And we map how we select our companies to how they can help us achieve our state's clean energy goals. So although we support companies both in Hawaii, we also support a global portfolio, but we love to see how those solutions can be deployed locally to scale globally. So there are a couple of ways that companies can come into our portfolio or work with us. We call this our triple track program. So the 3 tracks are strategy track, project track, and global track. Strategy track is really focused on coaching support. So that's with customer discovery, sales and operational scale up, fundraising, basically the 101 of what it needs to take to be a successful startup. And the other 2 tracks are our project-based tracks. So we will fund companies to deploy projects in communities in either Hawaii, California, as part of our project track, and that's up to $500,000 in funding. Or our global track is our newest one this year, actually, and that is to support companies to deploy anywhere in the world if they're looking to make either a product, service, or geography pivot to open up a new market. So we're excited to launch that with our new cohort. And every year we select 15 to 20 companies to participate in our program. We just announced cohort 10 about a month ago. So that's 19 new companies. And that brings our total up to about 138 companies in our portfolio. And we've seen one in about 6 of our companies exit. And there was actually a lot of activity early on this year. So that was really, really exciting. So we consider ourselves as, we do support, our startups and companies, but we really try to take a holistic approach to how we are addressing climate change. We know that technology is half of the solution and really, really believe that community is the other half of that solution. So there are a few ways that outside of just the startups that we really tackle this issue. So we recently just launched our Elemental Innovation Policy Lab. And that is really bringing folks that have, been working on a lot of these issues, whether they were entrepreneurs or working in policy adjacent places, and just continually coming up to barriers to innovation. And so with the Policy Innovation Lab, we have about 6 or 7 fellows with us right now who are working on plans to strategize about how they can work with legislators to help open up the doors for more entrepreneurs. And I think that, this was brought up in the previous discussion, I think Chenoa brought it up with Volta. So because of policy, it really, really allowed them to flourish as a Hawaii company and move beyond Hawaii in a really meaningful way. So we know that policy plays a really, really large role here in innovation. Another way we support the ecosystem is through our Career Pathways program. So every summer we have a number of internship opportunities, and we partnered with CLI. And Yuko, I saw that you were a CLI fellow. So we partnered with CLI on one of our programs to bring in more diversity to the industry. So we really focus on, students and communities that maybe didn't think of clean tech as a career pathway. And our goal in the next 5 years is to help directly fund 500 positions for internships, but also to inspire 10,000 climate careers. And this slide here just shows, we're born and raised here in Hawaii. We do have another office in the Bay Area, so about half our team sits in the Bay Area now, but we're really proud of the local ecosystem here and just look forward to continuing to work more deeply and growing those partnerships. And this is just a slide to show the impact of some of our corporate partners that we work with from all over the world, including Acario. So very excited to be in conversation today. And this is just a snapshot of some of the projects that we've done. So I think a really exciting one is Amp Air, which is a hybrid electric airplane. And we partnered with Mokulele Airlines, which is the local commuter airlines here in Hawaii. And we were able to test out their technology on a cargo route. And they were the first hybrid electric plane to actually get a licensing to test out that route. And after that, they actually were acquired by a company called Surf Air. So we're really proud to see that because of a project in Hawaii, they were able to move on and see if they can expand regional routes for all over the US. And that's all I had.
Thank you, great. So the Makiko, can you go last, please?
Can I see the slide?
Yes, I think.
So can I? Is it fine?
Yes, looks fine. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, it goes back to the.
Oh, really? I don't know why. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
So, hello everyone. So, thank you for joining this session, and thanks Takako for having me here today. So, I am Makiko from Tokyo Gas and Acario Innovation. So, Acario is the corporate venture and open innovation of Tokyo Gas. I'd like to share a bit of Tokyo Gas's corporate overview and how we engage with climate tech and relevant startups. So, Tokyo Gas is Japan's largest provider of natural gas, serving the Tokyo metropolitan area surrounding Kanto regions, with a top line of $18 billion US. We currently serve 11.6 million gas customers and have around 3 million electricity customers since the deregulation of the energy market a few years ago. We have 63,000 kilometers of pipeline to distribute to our customers and also have 2.5 gigawatts in generation capacity to serve our electric customers. And this is a slightly different point compared to the other countries' utilities. Our LNG, so we have the whole value chain business, and our LNG value chain begins with our upstream business, procuring the LNG from the US, Australia, and the Middle East. In addition, we have several midstream businesses across the globe, including Japan, Southeast Asia, and North and Central America. For our downstream business, in addition to gas distribution and electricity retails, we provide several services to our C&I and residential customers, like house cleaning, cooking schools, and child watching services, to name a few. So Tokyo Gas announced its commitment to becoming a net zero company by 2050, and its long-term growth vision called Compass 2030, published in 2019. Since then, we have been focusing heavily on decarbonizing our operation as well as for customers. We will use technologies and expertise for the effective use of natural gas to promote decarbonization in the electricity and heat sectors and CO2 capture technologies. So not only the decarbonization areas, we are looking at various thematic areas such as new energy services and digital transformation. Because of we have whole value chain and then doing business in many various approaches. Tokyo Gas promotes open innovation and decarbonization by collaborating with startups and utilities to provide a wide range of service beyond gas. Tokyo Gas and its corporate venture and open innovation Acario, work closely together to identify the needs of various business units. Through our network and sourcing activities, of course, it's including environmental accelerators. So we identify startups to engage with for potential collaborations. So we engage with startups in multiple ways, including direct investment, business development activities such as pilot project or POCs, as well as joint ventures. So yeah, and then that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. So I want to kind of expand the discussion more like about women empowerment and the climate change. So I made like a 3 main questions to expand our discussion. So let me share the screen. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So, oops, sorry. Okay. So the first question is, in your experience, what are some roles or positions that allow people to influence climate change policy? So I thought that this is kind of like the good question to open up how you think, what do you think about the climate change? So maybe Tiffany, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I think this is where actually community and corporates can play a really large role. You know, as a voter, you definitely have a voice in influencing policy. So I think, you know, really exercise that, reach out to, you know, your local legislators if there's an issue that you're interested in, and they'll take your calls too, because you are voting for them to be in office. So I would really encourage you to exercise that right that you have. And then of course with corporates, you know, I think that's where we can see a lot of impact just naturally by the scale of their work. And I think that's a community that can definitely lean in and influence policy more as well.
Great, thank you. So maybe Yuko, you can go next. How do you think about whose influence on the climate change?
Yeah, so let me speak a little bit more from like a business perspective. So I'm a firm believer in the power of the business to solve the social issues. And that's kind of like second to what Tiffany has just said. But the level of the capital deployed through business is far bigger than like what can be provided from the public. So even if the, you know, the funding from the government is like a record high in the like a public history. So like what make the area of business capital deployable? There are many aspects, but what I think is the first point, and I believe, is to identify the quantify the issue. So one of the big influence that I believe is the government or the company to quantify, like, this is the level of the renewable energy to be deployed to achieve the certain goals. So rather than just saying like, we would like to shoot for this star, like quantify the issue is, I believe, is gonna be a big influence to the issue. And it's a little bit of a different angle, but diversity is another angle that I wanted to mention. So speaking of the legacy power business, what consumers are hoping for was relatively similar across the customer segment, which was like a cheap and reliable delivery of the electricity. But when it comes to the climate change or the decarbonization, there is such a different needs coming in. So I'm believing that the diversity of the people within the company or in the government going to be make a big influence in how to solve those issues. So those are the 2 points that I wanted to raise.
Great, thank you. So maybe Chenoa, can you go next?
Yeah, I think, I mean, very similar to kind of what Yuko was saying. I think the corporate or business, can have a big influence. And, we tend to think about more kind of advocacy groups and nonprofit groups, but I think, the work that, let's say, Tiffany and I are doing in this space kind of speaks to the power of business to be an influence for good in climate change, and not just climate change, businesses either. Like every business can get involved in this. So that's, two of the things we think about at Blue Startups. One is the direct companies that we're investing in that are in this space that can have an influence, and they have an influence by making money and continuing to build infrastructure, right? Again, going back to like the Volta example, right? They make money, but they also are having a positive impact. So I think, a lot of times we're thinking about it too kind of in too much of a binary scenario where you have to be a nonprofit to be thinking about climate change. And even, like I said, other businesses. So, as I mentioned in my introduction, Blue Startups invests in a variety of businesses, some that are focused on sustainability and some that are not. Those that aren't, we definitely try to get them to think about their sustainability within their companies, right? Whether that's good corporate responsibility policy, whether that's give back campaigns, other environmental campaigns that they can connect their company to. We know that this can be a really big benefit both for the company and for the community, right? When companies get involved in having a give back campaign or things like that. So that's, I think we're kind of in thinking about it similarly, in that in order for us to really move the needle, these efforts have to be sustainable, and to be sustainable, you have to make money, I think. So, so being a business, that is working in this industry, I think is really the best way to have an influence. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I put you always last, Makiko, but can you share your opinion?
Okay, so I agree with all of you, and the policymaker is a very impactful people in the climate tech areas. And also I'd like to add one more important people, that is the consumer or energy users, because the decision maker itself is that them, like, based on my experience, because my Tokyo Gas experience of about 20 years and almost all times I spend in residential sections. And then even though we provide any services or equipment to our customers, if they cannot decide to use, there's no result. That's the fact I realized. So that means consumer and energy user is a very important role in the climate tech area, I think. Yeah. And then of course, the policymakers' influence is very big. We are a utility under the regulated Japanese market. So if we, how can I say, it's difficult to business beyond the regulation. So the regulation itself might be or should be changed in the future. but anyway, so consumers' activities is the impact for that policy making, I think.
Yeah, great. I'm even like enjoyed from all of your answers, and then, like I could tell that those climate change cannot be changed with only from one aspect. We need a lot of aspect like policy making, customer decision making, the business making money. So I want to add a little bit more like women empowerment perspective for the next question. So my next question is, do women have the impact of those roles? So that's my second question. I know like you guys talking about the businesses, companies, policymaker, and then I know it's so hard for you to explain like general idea, but if you can share with your experiences, how is going on your organization or region, I think it's going to be very interesting for us to hear. So maybe Yuko, you want to go first?
Sure. Are you hearing me fine?
Yes.
Okay, because I have a little bit of trouble with that audio, but anyway. So let me say like a Japanese society is still like a pretty much like a male dominated, and I haven't seen any senior management position by a woman within the company that I work for. Yet what's interesting is the company has just released an announcement that they have a target to have like a new hire 50-50 male and a female by 2024. So it's like I'm kind of being lucky to work here at the time of transition, that I'm hoping to share my experience in the United States, working with a lot of like women role models I met through like a community like CELA, which I was like honored to be one of the fellow for this year, or like a woman of the renewable industry and the sustainable energy, I think that was the name of it, or the woman in the clean tech and the sustainability. But like it's kind of the repeat of myself again, but given that like a decarbonization, climate change is like such a diverse issue, like not only just a woman, but like a more diverse voice will be reflected to the decision making or the policy making, or even just like on a more on the working level to make the solution or the system more accommodating, a diverse group of people. I think that's a critical part of the climate change issue.
Okay, thank you. So maybe Chenoa, can you go next? I know like a lot of people working in your company, a lot of women working. So I'm interested in hearing your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, a couple of things. One of the things that's great about this space and innovating in climate tech, it does seem to attract women entrepreneurs, which of course is one of our priority, kind of founder targets. And so I think, Tiffany's probably experienced this as well. They have a good, healthy proportion of female entrepreneurs in their mix. So I think that's kind of almost built into the equation, which is really nice as compared to some other areas of technology, startup and innovation, which tend to be very male dominated. So working in this industry, we get to work with a lot of women, and I think a lot of women are thinking naturally about kind of double bottom line, how to give back, what they can be doing to have a positive impact on the planet, even if their company is not related to climate tech. So I think, those are some of the patterns we see, which makes it all the more attractive for us to want to get involved with these companies and invest in them and get involved in the space, because it's kind of a double win for us. We get to invest in sustainability and in women, and that's really fantastic when we find those companies that are doing both. We get pretty excited about it. So I think that's one of the ways that women kind of impact this space is, again, I'm looking at through the entrepreneurial lens.
Great, thank you. So maybe Makiko, you can go next.
Women can impact on climate tech, and then there's several ways to realize that. So in the traditional Japanese companies, if it might be take a really longer time, but we can do many decision making as a user or consumers and women. It's related to the first question. So decision making person in energy area is mostly women, I think. So because many women consumption the energy itself in the residential sections, so we can do more in that area. That is one option. And then another one is that I was very fascinated by Elemental Excelerator, what we're running. Their women leader is leading that companies. So that women's activity is make more women impact or activities, not men. So the company itself is operated by women. So the theoretically or mindset is slightly different from the traditional company, I felt. So those activities, if more impactful that climate areas. So I hope those kind of activities more actively in these areas, and hopefully I might be enjoying that area in the future.
Great, thank you. Tiffany, you want to go last, please?
Sure. You know, I work with so many women every day that sometimes I forget that it is not a female dominated industry. And I think, you know, it's times like these where I realize that's a real luxury to be part of that environment, especially, you know, as I look around today on this panel and, you know, even in Hawaii's ecosystem, there's so many strong female leaders that are really leading the way with innovation and, you know, strengthening our entrepreneurship ecosystem. So, I mean, within our company, similar to Chenoa, we really focus on trying to diversify this industry. So we do look to see if it's a female founder or if there's a female on the executive team. And, you know, just from my experience with being at Elemental, I do feel like there is a thoughtfulness in how we approach, you know, almost any situation. Not to say that men are not thoughtful, because I also work with many, many great men in our organization and in the industry as well. But I think being female heavy definitely changes that dynamic a bit. And so that's something really special. And, you know, it's interesting when we've talked to a couple of our female founders, both female and women of color, right, in a very climate technology heavy area, which is traditionally male. And there have been some really like powerful moments where they've said they looked around the room and didn't see anyone that looked like them. And that was really, really discouraging. And they were undervalued as far as like, you know, their company valuations. They didn't know how to speak up for themselves, to even negotiate, you know, like higher valuations. And those are things that, you know, because you don't see other people that look like you, it makes it really hard to speak up. So we try to be a support here, just coming from, you know, having experience. And it's not just women companies, right? It's a company at the end of the day, and you need the best and the brightest people to be successful. But, you know, no bias here, but I think women make excellent leaders for many of these companies. And just being able to provide that support and confidence for people, I think, is really important, but also the grace too. You know, naturally, Takao, I think this came up in some of our prep conversations, but we saw a lot of women leave the workforce with the pandemic because naturally, you know, they had to stay home and take care of children. And it's, you know, we try to be really flexible with that, so that understanding, you know, like, yeah, you have a life at home and you need to be able to make meals still and check in on your kids when, you know, they're doing their distance learning, and also pick them up from school if they're doing in-person learning, and just have a grace with all of that, I think is really important, so that, you know, there's like room for all of us to grow into our roles as people as a whole, and not just kind of these robots that work between 8 and 5 p.m. every day.
Great. I think instead of going to the next question, because we're kind of running out of time, but I have like a couple more questions that I really want to go deep. So, I mean, Chenoa and Tiffany, I think your companies, as you guys explained, like a lot of women working, and it's, you know, powered by women. Is it kind of like unique in your company, or Hawaii has kind of like, I've been seeing a lot of good leaders, women leader here. Do you think it's like Hawaii's characters, or it's just America?
I mean, I'll speak to it. I think unfortunately we are the exception and not the rule. I'm sure Tiffany has, like I have attended many conferences and such in the accelerator world and in the investor world. Women are still very much in the minority. Unfortunately, I think Hawaii is the exception. I can't explain that. We're lucky. We have some really strong female-founded investment companies in Hawaii, but that is definitely the exception, not the rule. Again, like I said, in climate tech, a little bit more women are involved in that industry, but you know, the tech side of it pulls heavily to the male influence. So yeah, I guess Hawaii could be proud, I think, that we have so many women in leadership positions, although our community is very small. And, you know, unfortunately, we're not leveraging, you know, huge resources yet towards these things, but it is, I think, a really good start that we have so many kind of female-led organizations in this industry. And hopefully we'll have more. I mean, Blue Planet Foundation was just taken over by a woman as well. So we have that, and you know, I think we'll have more and more. So it's becoming the norm here. So maybe we'll be the influencer for the rest of the world.
Tiffany, do you agree with it? Do you have any comments?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. But I think the intentionality that all of us have in trying to, you know, increase the support of women entrepreneurs is making a huge difference. And we're seeing so many more events and resources and all of those things out there. So I think if we're intentionally creating space where women can thrive, that's part of the solution.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to that, you know, Tiffany had mentioned earlier that one of the founders said there was, you know, kind of nobody that looks like me in this room, you know, and that's something that I think we're very conscious of at Blue Startups in particular, because, you know, Maya and I, who are partners who run that, we really wanted it to be a place where women felt comfortable, where women felt welcome, where they weren't the only woman in the room. So we really strive to have at least half of our companies female-led, so that when they walk into that co-working space, there are a lot of women there, and it does not feel like many other, I think, co-working accelerator spaces in the tech field, which are kind of can have a bit of a frat house vibe, which is not very welcoming for women. You know, you walk in and go, oh, I don't think this is for me. And, you know, maybe walk out and do something else with your life. So, yeah, we're trying to create those welcoming and safe places. Yeah.
Okay, so my last question is to Yuko and Makiko. As a Japanese man myself, how we can catch up with them? I know we are very behind, right? I mean, it's fun. We're improving, but we are very behind. How we can catch up? Do you have any comments or opinion?
Yeah. So,
Yeah, Makiko, you can go. Well, you can join the chat too.
so I unfortunately, I think there is unconscious bias and also like culture in Japan, and then but even though there's those kind of cultures, what can we do is that we realize there is those kind of unconscious bias or some cultures, but we don't care about that, and try to do everything what we can do. So just do it is what we want to do. Yeah, that's my idea.
Yuko, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so let me just say a little bit more positive side of the things. Things change a lot.
Please. Yeah.
Last 1.5 years. What happened is it used to be a little bit of taboo to talk about the family thing at workplace. It's like, oh, because I have to take take the kids to somewhere. That's why I missed the meeting. That was kind of the taboo to say this before. However, given with this a COVID situation, we see the family of them behind in a screen on the Zoom, and speaking about the family, or speaking about in a more what kind of the issue you have at home, what's the so this type of a more a diversity issue is coming to the kind of it's okay to talk about type of thing at the workplace. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the game changer for the gender equality or the gender gap issue as well. So it's a little bit of positive side.
Thank you for sharing that. I will really wanted it. All right, thank you. Even we really can go deep more. I think this is about time. Thank you very much for the time and share your insight. So before we go to the next session, which is how can the tech company big in Hawaii, we want to have a 5 minutes break. So please come back 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So during the break, I wanted to show our amazing interpreter partners who are providing us to make our event available in both Japanese and English. If you're interested in their service, please feel free to contact them through the contact info here, or contact info for the digital brochure. Okay, welcome back. So we want to continue our Island Innovation Demo Day conference. Okay. So the next session is how can a tech company go big in Hawaii? I wanted to welcome Isa Mustafa Chenoa. After acquiring a PhD in electronic engineering from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, Isa founded Scientific to design, develop, and commercialize microelectronics for the advanced science instruments used in the US and Japan. Under his leadership, Nalu Scientific has seen significant growth. Isa has been named the Pacific Business New 40 Under 40 business in the state of Hawaii, and Nalu Scientific was recognized as the most innovative small business by Hawaii Business Magazine. Today, as a leader of one of the successful tech companies founded in Hawaii, he will share his secret tips on how you can grow your tech business and take advantage of Hawaii community to the economy thrive. Hi, Isa. I'm so excited to listen to your presentation. Are you ready?
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. So
Okay.
I gave you the access to share your screen, so please start whenever you want.
Let's see if I can find this. Right. Okay. Is this my screen coming through?
Yes.
Aloha, Takaho-san. Thank you for invitation. Thank you, everyone, for having me today. My name is Isar Mustafanejad, founder and CEO at Nalu Scientific. And I must say I'm really impressed by the quality of this event. I peeked in a little earlier and listened to the previous conversation going on about all the aspects of inclusion and diversity in the ecosystem here in Hawaii, and I've been part of that, and I'm really fortunate to be working with many of people that have been on the previous presenters essentially. So it's been a real privilege and honor to be working with most of the people on this call today. We are a small startup here in Hawaii. I can say we're a small business essentially, but we are growing fast. We are at the Manoa Innovation Center, very close to the University of Hawaii. I'm in my office right now in the building. We have raised over $12 million in funding in the past 5 years for our R&D work, which I'll explain to you what we do. And we have about 18 staff members from a diverse background. We have 5 actually female members with degrees in engineering or science, PhDs even in electrical engineering. And we have access to very advanced microelectronics design tools. We design and develop microchips right here on the island. We also have a lab. We do rapid prototyping and testing of our microelectronics. Our technical expertise are in the areas of IC design, also known as integrated circuit design, analog digital system on chip design. That's what we do here. That's how we started to design our integrated circuits, and they are so advanced. When we first made them a few years ago, realized that they're very complicated things, so they need to be integrated with for the end users. So we started doing hardware design. We do design on advanced printed circuit boards. If you open a computer or a cell phone, you can see green or red board that has lots of components on top of it. Those components are microchips, and what we make are also the PCBs. So you can see on the left a picture of some of our advanced designs that have been fabricated and we're currently testing. The hardware side, we also need to do software development for these microchips. So we do the firmware design, which is a layer of language between the hardware and the software. And finally, we also have a software team that also does the software design that will communicate with our microchips and get them to function the way that the end user wants. That's our technical expertise. We also have a scientific team here. They are the subject matter experts on what we're trying to do, and I explained to you where all this goes. So we have physicists on staff, experts that understand how these microelectronics can be used for scientific instruments, essentially. And a little bit about our name. Nalu in the Hawaiian language essentially means peak of the wave. And what we do at the company is to digitize the waveforms. And everything that happens around you in the world is analog. Speech, light, pictures, motion, everything in the physical world is analog. And in order for us to be able to process that information, we need to convert it to digital form, essentially. That's when, after it's digitized, the computers and your algorithm can operate on it and understand what's happening. And for that, you need something called the analog to digital converter. And that's in every cell phone, in every computer, every headset has it, every microphone has it, every camera has it. And these are devices that are designed to convert that specific type of analog signal into digital. And then we can process it, we can communicate with it, we can transfer it. What we are making is a special types of analog to digital converters that are designed to detect very small amounts of light down to a single photon and detect the time of arrival of those photons down to a picosecond timing resolution, essentially. And people ask, what is a picosecond? That's, if you think about a billionth of a second, divide that by 1,000 times, essentially a thousandth of a billionth of a second, or a millionth of a second, essentially. It's a very tiny amount of time. And our microchips enable scientists measure very low amounts of photons down to picosecond timing resolution. And here's an example of a microchip that we've designed. You can see on this is the outside of it, the packaging of it, essentially, and a picture of the island of Oahu. So we made this. And then inside, if you open it, there is this little thing called a die, or a micrograph. And that's a micrograph of the die, essentially a picture of it. It's millions of transistors packed into a tiny space of 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters, essentially quarter inch by quarter inch. And then we need to integrate these microchips with advanced sensors. And here are some pictures of the sensors. They are sensors that can detect very small amounts of lights. And the main application that got us off and running, essentially, is this high energy physics experiment. It's a particle collider experiment in Japan. So that's where it gets really exciting, talking about Japan. So I have been traveling to Japan the past 3 to 5 years, essentially. I think I've been there 20 times in a span of 2 to 3 years, pre-COVID, obviously, to work on this very special instrument that's in the city of Tsukuba. So our microchips have main applications in the collider experiment that's happening in Japan and also a few other places in the world. We're also working on other applications for our microchips. Part of that is plasma fusion diagnostics, LiDAR and imaging, and also PET imaging, positron emission tomography imaging, essentially, because our microchips convert analog to digital for a variety of these applications. And so here's how we got started back about 5 years ago. We, as a researcher at the University of Hawaii, I would travel to Japan a lot, and I would go to this specific city named Tsukuba, which is 60 miles from Tokyo. Essentially, it's there's a direct line. There's a bus from Narita Airport, and also from Tokyo, you have the Tsukuba Express that goes to Akihabara Station, essentially. And here's a map, Google Map view that shows what's there. It's a ring that is about 3 kilometers in diameter, and it's buried underground. It has an accelerator that accelerates electrons and positrons to the speed of light almost, and then a collision happens here in this building called the Tsukuba Hall. Here's a picture that I snapped from the KEK website, essentially, that's in Tsukuba. And here's a cartoon of what happens then. Electron and positron collide. There are all sorts of other tiny particles that are generated that go around every direction in a volume almost the size of a 6-story tall building. And now the scientists' jobs are to capture these fast happening collisions and run it by their theories and understand the basic laws of physics, essentially, about the nature, about the energy and about matter. it's fascinating. Every once in a while, you hear somebody getting a Nobel Prize because they figured out that gravity wasn't what we thought it was, for example. So it just blows my mind as an engineer. And I've had the privilege of working with these very smart people. It's a 900-member collaboration going on. 26 countries are involved. This is how the inside the Scuba Hall building looked like in 2015. And I used to climb up and down this myself and install some of our electronics there, previous version of our electronics. And then 2018, it's all up and running, taking data. People are getting their PhDs in physics and publishing the results. They're now getting ready to upgrade this system essentially because they need better electronics. And that's where we come in. And that's where we can, I hope we can help as in the first degree, essentially. So we learned a lot through that process. We understood how a large experiment like this works. It's a very complicated machine. They need a lot of advanced, there are lots of commercial off-the-shelf electronics available, but you also need special microchips to enable the next generation type of measurements. And that lesson number 2 for us was, how can we make these low cost, low power, user-friendly microchips, and how can we pay for it? And that's where we started pitching that to the United States government, the Department of Energy, which is has an Office of Science, essentially major backer of such large experiments. And the Office of Science of the US Department of Energy has relationships with the Office of Science or similar in the Ministry of Science of Japan, and they have a treaty essentially. So they can fund mutual and joint work together on matters like this. So that we have been since then we have been receiving funding through very competitive process. You have to write proposals and go through a very rigorous scientific and technical review process, and then hopefully get selected. And that has allowed us to go through that process. So we've been receiving funding through that program through a number of phase 1 and phase 2 grants. I'm happy to share with you information details on how this program works. We've also been getting help from the state of Hawaii. The state of Hawaii understands the need for development in technology and the ability and the potential that it could bring for state's economic development. And so we've been very lucky to be able to get help from them through matching grants programs. And this has resulted also in a very fruitful collaboration with the University of Hawaii, a number of other universities, UC system. We also work with Stanford, for example. We work with national labs in the East Coast and West Coast. And through this program, we've been training lots of graduate students and postdoctoral fellows. And some of them have gone on to get their first jobs at Knowledge Scientific with us, essentially. Moving forward, I'm hoping that in 2021, 2023, we can do more of the tech development, similar to what's happening in Hawaii right here. And we can integrate more. We're now getting our microchips out. We're working on getting them to the hands of the end users. Essentially, we have beta testers and initial customers that are very happy with it. So lots of potential opportunity coming our way. I want to take a quick detour here and talk about why Hawaii. So every time I tell anybody that we're doing integrated circuit design on an island in Hawaii, it gets people's attention. And first we thought that was not a good thing, but then we realized that's actually a good thing, because people may forget our name, who we are, what we do, what kind of shirt we were wearing, but actually one thing they don't forget is the aloha shirt that you're wearing. So being from Hawaii has been very helpful for us, and that's news to people, that's information to people, especially doing such level of high-tech development in Hawaii. So brand name, the Hawaii brand name has been helping us, believe it or not. It also is a very strategic location for us, working with Asia and the mainland US. In the mornings, I can be on phone calls with East Coast, for example, with US National Labs or Department of Energy folks. And afternoons, I can be on phone calls with Japan, just like today. Another example. And I do see that we have a lot of dial-ins from Japan. We also feel that we're creating an impact on the state. Everybody that works at Nalu is local here in Hawaii. They have either gone to University of Hawaii or gone to high school here, or have been here and been a longtime resident here, essentially. And we continue to do that, and we hope that we can expand our programs and be able to expand their team by tapping into the local pool, local talent. I feel that that creates option for a lot of our employees. Mobility is a good thing. You definitely want to go wherever you want and explore and expand new things. But if you want to come back to your family, it's good to have options, essentially. And I feel that we are providing that to a certain extent. And it allows us to retain, local expertise here on the island, essentially. So that's kind of wrapping up here. We're trying to get the word out there, and thank you, Takao-san, for the note. We've been getting some awards, getting some attention. Check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Just Google us. You can find us. We've been invited to give talks in places. We've been at various conferences. We've had visits from the members of the Congress here in our office, and just really trying to get the word out there also. I also want to thank the organizers for inviting me today. Department of Energy, Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, University of Hawaii, Department of Physics, Office of Innovation and Commercialization. So thank you all, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you so much, Aisar. Before I go to the questions from audience, I have a question. So I've been doing this like startups and techs in Hawaii, and sometimes I feel like maybe only for Japanese, like if I say Hawaii, they're like, it could be like a deep branding because they think, oh, Hawaii just a tourist destination, and then they don't believe there's a lot of good startups and a tech company in Hawaii. But you said Hawaii is gonna be like a very good, strong message for you. How you can leverage that Hawaii name to the tech company?
Right. No, that's an excellent point. Well, I think we all agree that the potential of Hawaii, just the university that's here, it's a R1 research university, and there's a lot of infrastructure going on, lots of accelerator programs, and it's tremendous help. But yeah, you're right. How can an outsider or a visitor essentially see that? And I think there could be potentially some programs that would cater to those kind of curious type visitors. Not everybody, is, there are visitors that want to come and go into a hotel room, for example, and enjoy the beach, and that's perfectly fine. But there could be others that might be interested in, seeing what else is going on. Somebody might be interested in, the downtown area of what the lifestyle is there, or going to a restaurant like a mom and pop restaurant and things like that. And I think messaging things in a way that would cater to, the tech type visitor that is generally curious but has never thought about it. And if they see maybe a billboard at the airport or something on the Hawaiian Air magazine or an airline magazine or something like that, that there's probably a lot of room there, and that could kind of create that attention. And then pre-COVID times, we used to have a lot of kind of tech kind of meetups, and that's when we had an influx of visitors that were just curious, wanted to know what's going on. They would show up to a reception or a meeting or something like that, or a meetup, and then that's how they would get connected and then decide to either move to Hawaii or do some business with Hawaii. And then it's just such a small community that things can happen really quickly. Like degree of separation is 1 essentially or less. So if you know one person in a meetup and then that you can connect with them, they can connect you really quickly from there on, basically.
So read to the question, because it's kind of interesting, because we're going to have the tourism innovation section after coming up. So, for us, like working a tech company or tech industry, how we can collaborate with those like a tourism stuff? Like, do you have any idea, like specific idea, as you said, like maybe working with the airline company, ask them to help us to promote, or like, do you have like some specific idea that you can share? Like if you ever kind of thought about it.
Right. I think we are not the only ones that that are trying to do this. I feel that there are other places in the world that may have been able to crack the code, and there's probably some lessons learned there. Yeah, I think just looking at what other localities or companies have been doing may help. And the other thing is that the way that, again, I'm not an expert in tourism really, but the way that really places that people go are just so kind of adventure or relaxation type of, oriented, that they, a typical visitor may not see that there are real people living there, and there's neighborhoods, and there are real people living there. They're having their lives, and some of them are doctors, lawyers, whatever, or teachers, and there's also a tech industry. So yeah, I think crafting a message is a good thing. But again, if we put Hawaii and tech in one sentence, it will get everybody's attention immediately. And that's what I can tell you from my experience.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I think that there's a kind of related question from the audience. What do you think we are missing to create and foster more tech companies in here? Like there is, obviously there's some gap, right? How we can kind of like help the community to have more tech company?
Right. I think part of it is the mentality, and just us locals that are living here sometimes don't believe in ourselves, and we think tech means that you have to work 100 hours a week and you don't get any life for your family or yourself, or if you go into tech, you're just gonna basically work to death, or who knows if you're gonna be successful or not, or tech is not for Hawaii because we want to all go fishing all the time, for example. So some of it could be from us ourselves, and in one way to get out of that is maybe have examples out there that look, it's possible, and these companies are doing it. We are doing it, and we are getting paid okay salaries. Yeah, it's very expensive here in Hawaii. What kind of work, what kind of job can you have to be able to afford to live here? Tech is probably one of them. And also we still go out and we all have families. Like everybody at the company has a family. I have 2 small children. A lot of staff members here have small children, either both female and male. And we talk about our families at work and little kids, what they do. So we try to make it fun, and that's the only way to go. And so I guess if we just kind of think outside the box there a little bit, just think about it as another job that you can have. Yeah, maybe you have to work a little harder, but also you can express yourself, go out there, go surfing. And then that's what I do, and have that for my creative mind, basically. And that's where I can relax and kind of think about the next steps for the business, or go out on a bike ride, be out in the nature and adventure, and then come back recharged, and then kind of make a big impact at work. And that's what has helped us a lot. We're a small team. We've been doing so much, and I can attribute to some of that to just being in Hawaii. We work hard, but I feel that the fact that we can take the weekend off and do something refreshing and recharging, Monday morning we're again back on the horse and going strong.
Maybe like from what you said, we can do more maybe in education, right? Like you're talking about mentality, how you feel, maybe they don't believe themselves, but if we can, educate more youth and kids, like, hey, we can do it. You can do recharging and work hard in Hawaii. Like you don't have to go out. You can stay and make still big tech company. Do you think that makes sense? Absolutely.
So that's what we have. We have an internship program right at the company, and we pick interns from University of Hawaii and even Hawaii Pacific University, HPU, for example, and they're very smart people, and then we are hoping to set an example for them. So we spend significant time working, getting them through our internship program, getting them up and running, and teaching them what the processes are and everything else, and also setting an example for them so that they can see what it looks like when they essentially are in charge later, how they can kind of model this essentially, and both become a good technical person, innovative and technical engineer or scientist, but also have a family and enjoy their time here and do what they're also passionate about, be it outdoor activity, be close with their families, because everybody in Hawaii has big families. So be able to spend time with them and go out there and also have a good time and come back and learn more. So that's the message that we've been crafting. And I'm hoping that they will also take it back to their schools, the universities, high schools, places like that, and spread that out. So
it's all about the creating ecosystem, right? The circle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the question that I have from audience here is, how did you expand your network? For example, connecting with HTDC. I know you talk about the funding from government, right? Like when you started in a company, how did you make those connections with people?
It's a process. I started going to these events that HTDC was putting together. The idea to start Nalu actually came to me at one of the events that HTDC had put together, and they bring in speakers, invite people, just similar to the event that you're putting together. So I'm hoping that this can be an inspiration for somebody at some point. But yeah, so going to these events and then seeing how other people did that and what we could contribute essentially, and just keep going, keep showing up to events, meeting people, and as entrepreneurs. There are things that we don't know, and there are things that we don't know. Mm-hmm. So just talking to more people has helped myself and has helped a lot of us to figure out where we can get help from. And sometimes it's HTDC and sometimes it's organizations that they introduce basically. And so is our connection with the government. So we also have a very good communication channel with the United States government, which is essentially in Washington, D.C., which is the farthest location you can imagine from Hawaii. But they have programs that are there to help companies like us, especially in underrepresented areas. And so they get excited when they get an application from Hawaii, or when somebody from Hawaii wants to talk to them, or somebody from a remote area wants to talk to them, because their job is to be equal to everyone basically and be fair to everyone, and they're spending taxpayer money, and they need to show that they're getting the reach that they're supposed to get. And so and that's again, don't be afraid to be from small town or far or things like that. This can work a lot to your advantage basically, and you can stay there. Getting on the plane is another thing. So we've been traveling a lot, and I myself have been traveling a lot the past few years, pre-COVID, and we continue to do those on Zoom and everything else, but eventually we have to get on the plane and go places, and that's just the reality of the modern day life. So don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, but that's like a good reason, right? Like, oh, you can go to Japan or DC for the business trip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So lastly, it's about to time wrap up. So I kind of want to give the message to the youth and the young people or entrepreneur who looking at this, like maybe they're willing to make the big tech company in Hawaii. Do you have any message to them?
Oh, thank you. Way to go, putting me on the spot here. Gosh, there is. I mean, I'm learning every day myself. I think that's my takeaway is. I spent all my time, bachelor's, master's, PhD program, university, then postdoctoral fellowship, and then I still am learning about business and how to make progress to the next thing. And that's just the constant now, basically. So don't be afraid to learn things. Be always ready to learn new things. And something that may have worked for somebody else may not work for you, but somebody that works for you may not work for somebody else. And that's part of growing, basically. And so keep an open mind and essentially go out there to learn and look at it as a process to grow personally. That's how I look at it. Also as a company, and just understand that it's a process. It's going to take time, and there are many failures out there. We have asked for way more money, and this is how much we got. So, but we had to try, and we keep trying, and but that's what we learn from. And so if you ask for resources, funding, or trying to run your idea by somebody, and it didn't seem to work the first time, or second time, even 10th time, 50th time, don't give up, and try again, pivot, talk to more people, and don't be discouraged just because you're from Hawaii or you're from another country or a small place or nobody knows what you do where you're from. Just keep doing it, show up, and keep the values up there, basically.
All right, thank you so much, Isa.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet everybody, and congrats for putting this great event together.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
All right, so I'm the founder of, I'm not founder of an actual tech company, but learned a lot from his session. I hope a lot of you will follow him and make the tech company here. Okay, last but not least, the next session is innovation and diversification in Hawaii's tourism. At this session, we will have 3 experts in the tourism-related sectors from both Hawaii and Japan discuss how Japanese tourists' point of view on traveling to Hawaii have changed and how Hawaii's tourism industry should shift and innovate. First, I wanted to welcome Mitsue Bali, Japan Country Director of Hawaii Tourism Japan. She started her career at the Kula Lounge in Hawaii. She later worked at the Oahu Visitors Bureau and the Hawaii Convention Center as Director of International Sales and Marketing, overseeing the Japan and Asia market. She is currently serving as Japan Country Director for Hawaii Tourism Japan. Hi, Mitsue. Thank you for being part of this event today.
Aloha, Takaho, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So when you're ready, please start your presentation.
Okay, I'll do. Well, first of all, thank you so much again for inviting me for this event, Innovation Day. As a Hawaii Tourism Japan, we have been supporting this event from the beginning, and then I'm so excited to see how the event grows, and also have met so many different communities and passionate and smart people. So, good hats off to Takaho, and then I'm really glad to become a presenter for today. Today, what I'm going to talk about at first 10 minutes or so is what's happening in tourism industry right now, especially right now. And also where the Hawaii tourism is actually shifting to or going to. The direction is changing a lot. And lastly, how to reopen and recovery of the international market and which area we need you folks' help in innovative and also technology ideas, because it has to be collaborating, and tourism is changing from mass tourism to niche tourism. There's so many different world of tourism: ecotourism, volunteerism, medical tourism, also edutourism, and we're really focusing on edutourism. So I'd like to speak about that a little bit. Let me share the screen. And I'm sorry, I forgot to resize my PowerPoint. My PowerPoint is huge, so I'm gonna just do as it is. Okay, here you go. This is the these are numbers last since 1990, I guess. And as you see, right before the COVID, we had consecutive 9 years of growth. We have only 1.4 million populations in Hawaii, and we had about 10 million visitors. You see, what does it mean? And also, this one is a satisfaction survey result that, we do the satisfaction, I cannot pronounce that one, satisfaction survey to the visitors and also the people who live in Hawaii. And this is really important for state of Hawaii to see how the community feels. And the rate is going down, right? So the state of Hawaii, especially Hawaii Tourism Authority, along with all the organization, is putting the yellow cards. This is not good. So since like 2017, 18, we are talking about responsible tourism. We actually had 4 new pillars, really focusing on putting the resources for natural resources, how tourism industry can collaborate with DNR, which is Department of Natural Land and Resources, or other state organizations or other nonprofit organizations, how to really protect and also educate Hawaiian culture initiatives to the visitors, and how to collaborate with more communities. And of course, the branding marketing pillar is really important, but the branding is now we are touring to the tourism management, rather marketing, branding. How we manage the tourism is the really key pillar for us. And so during the COVID, so many things happened, and some of the positive things happened was people really start questioning, how we can protect these natural resources, but yet how to have a balance of economy. And tourism industry is huge industry. 17% GDP of Hawaii is tourism industry. 1 of 5 people are working for tourism industry. So how we recover tourism is a key. So there are so many discussions and community meetings, and then which really helped Hawaii tourism to shift the direction. So how we are going to do is that if you haven't seen the Hawaii Strategic Tourism Plan, which is on the Hawaii Tourism Authority website, please look at it, because it's really important to understand how as a state organization and with the stakeholders, the direction is shifting to where. And so destination management action plan by each island was just announced, and it's on the website too, which is on top of those 4 pillars. So we were going forward to the responsible tourism, and then start doing a lot of educational messaging initiatives, and now really huge into the regenerative tourism. How we can leave the resources to the next generation, how the tourism can be contribute to those activities, how the visitor can be part of it, how we can do the product development. So there is a lot of different initiatives going on that you folks can help us. So those are the each island stakeholders, not only the state government offices or industry people, communities, community leaders come together, did all SWOT analysis of what's problem, what's happening, what we should do, and how it's going to align with our state's Aloha Plus Challenge, SDGs, how to protect the natural resources. So each island did a lot of different depth discussions and came out with this destination management action plan. So this one is also on the Hawaii Tourism Authority's website. And each island had different type of action plans. Example, island of Oahu have 47 of them. And so they are going one by one. As a Hawaii Tourism Japan, who is the marketing agency for Japan market, understanding of each island's current situation and some of the concerns, and also the action plans, how we implement into the marketing plan. So we did a lot of discussion during this COVID time, not only to prepare to reopen the market, prepare to really sending the message how Hawaii is ready, or Hawaii is safe, or Hawaii guidelines changed. Even the international people, how to get into the island is totally different. And so it is important to do the communication, but yet overall as a vision, our tourism branding is becoming too more focused on tourism management. Promotion or marketing initiative becomes more educational initiative, educational programs. It is changing a lot. And currently, this one is happening in Hawaii, but also this one is going to happen in Japan sooner or later. So we have been discussing a lot with actually destination marketing organizations or governmental offices in each prefectures in Japan too. So if you folks can actually create a case study on Hawaii, you can bring it back to Japan to actually do the two-way initiatives. So we are doing Malama Hawaii in Japanese subtitle Chikyū ni Yasashii Tabe o. So we are creating how the visitor can be, again, participate into sustain the culture, sustain the natural resources, understanding how educational program they can actually experience. So we created a Malama Hawaii microsite and start introducing a lot of different local business companies who is creating educational programs or any other the businesses, especially in the science or educational or medical industry that Japanese corporation can be involved. So we've been working with Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism too, to really ties into how to encourage and grow the relationship between not only tourism, but the business relationship between Hawaii and Japan. Going back to the tourism, this is one sheet, characteristic sheet that we explain the Japanese travelers, because we, during the COVID, Japanese market is such an important market for Hawaii. We would like to really explain to the local community that Japanese traveler is a Pono traveler. They come, average spend 241.60 per day. They come with mainly package, 60% packages, 40% FIDs. And so, they are more controllable and they always wear masks, or they're respectable for the cultures and rules and guidelines. And also, we have a high repeater percent, 68%. So 3 people out of 5 been to Hawaii at least once or twice. So they really understand the destinations and then they feel comfortable, so those type of characteristic of customers or travelers, visitors, really important for Hawaii. So our keyword is high valued visitors who have a high conscious and also educated, and also, once a year going to travel. And so we have a lot of different target audiences in Japan, but we start specifically doing a lot of target marketing. So the key current activities right now, what we are doing is Malama Hawaii message, really trying to educate pre-arrival, how Hawaii is moving forward and, what type of message Hawaii would like to showcase. At the same time, we have to let them know about the safety protocol and distribution. So those are the ones, the first thing that we are doing right now. But secondly, we really need to collaborate with industry partners, not only tourism industry partners, all those different type of collaborations. So we've been talking not only airline industries or travel agent industries, a lot of different startup companies, because we need more tech to do the communications. And 3, to reopen, recover, we need to have rediscover the relationship between Hawaii and Japan. So we're going to do a lot of different type of relationship project, exchange project, educational project towards the future initiatives. Those are the 4 different persona, target audience persona. First, people will come back with FITs, repeaters, Pono travelers who loves Hawaii, who helps Hawaii, who would like to be part of it to the new initiative or movement. The second target would be the new norm worker. We call that the people who didn't get much influence working for the corporations, who have a pretty good income, have a actually flexible freedom to go to vacation anywhere, anytime. And also later on, couple, romance, wedding, honeymoon, anniversary groups are coming back. It's huge in Japan market. And also later on, multi-generation families. Those are our target audience personas, but they are really seeking for more experiences, more educational, the experiences that we would like to offer. The target regions, we have a direct flight from Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya. And then right now we are now flying, but hopefully to resume soon from Sapporo and Fukuoka. And other regional cities has a local airport that really access to those direct flights. And so we do a lot of activities throughout Japan. And this is really important. We have 30 sister city relationships, and most of them are islands too. So there is a lot of different discussions and exchange program, education programs is happening. Really focusing on the next generation is really important. And so at the end, I would like to say is, mass tourism to niche tourism, that direction is changing. It's all based on Aloha Plus challenges, not protecting the natural resources, how to really educate about Hawaiian culture. And in international market, there is always barrier about the languages, workforce development because of the visa situations. and product development. Hawaii has such amazing educational programs. You know, the children's or youth here on the island, they're so lucky. There are so many outfield educational programs on Hawaii Island, Maui Island, Kauai, and Oahu, and so many different nonprofit organizations provide educational programs, but it's all in English and smaller groups. And how we connect to the international market is the key. And to do that, we're going to need the technologies and different innovative ideas. On the last one is hotspots. Hotspot means that the places that communities really would like to protect, but yet becoming more over tourism. You know, not only showcasing where the really crowded area, but before that, really to let the visitor know why you would like to be respectful, or you know how you can do that. You know, type of educational information prior to go to those hotspots. That will be the key for the tourism industry. So I think from after COVID to the next generations, the tourism initiative is going to be totally different. We had always had Aloha Spirit. And also we are doing Malama Hawaii, Malama. Malama and Aloha will be the two canoes going to the future to really sustain the tourism. So if you folks can have amazing innovative ideas or technologies, you know, that would really help the tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sue. That was interesting insight. So I think next presenter is a perfect match after your presentation. Next, I wanted to welcome Leo Rogers. Leo is a business partner of Bakshali, which is the first co-working place where there are a lot of like international nomad workers and also those like a new type of the business services gathering in Hawaii, located Ward 8 here. Leo will present his business to expand how to Bakshali is providing new type of the tourism in the community. Thank you, Leo, and please start your presentation when you're ready.
All right. Thank you. Can you guys see my presentation right now?
Yes.
Okay. That was a wonderful presentation, Mitsue-san. I don't know how I could, you know, attain that level, but I'll give it a shot. So thank you, Takaho, for allowing Bakshali, myself, to introduce what we do. Our company is called Bakshali. We are the first co-working space in Hawaii. And I wanted to, okay, just a little bit about myself. I'm actually a business partner over at Bakshali, but I'm also a co-founder of a company in Japan called Everblue Technologies, which we build a autonomous sailboat. And over the past year or two, maybe during COVID, before that, I was actually traveling to Japan every month. And I actually, COVID was actually a big change in my life, and not just myself, but a lot of people's lives. And I think a lot of people can relate to my experience. And so I say COVID taught me to surf, like, because I actually never really surfed before COVID. I do often get perceived as a surfer, but then it gave me a lot of time to actually step back away from work and reassess my life and really re-examine how I want to live it. And so, one of the things that I wanted to do is, hey, I wanted to take my children out surfing, and, actually come to think of it, now is actually the only time, if they grow up, I can't take them on a surfboard with me. And so this was, I realized eventually that this was actually the time right now is actually more precious than there are experiences that I can have right now that I can't push back. And so that being like work-life balance has to happen now, not 10 years in the future, especially when you're in the startup world. It's easy to get caught up and, leave your family and leave, it's a very Japanese culture. I mean, very tech, business culture. If you own your own business, it's easy to go in that direction. And so, yes, the new normal. So now, yeah, more people than ever have the ability to work from home. And we had to re-examine our relationships because we're not going into our office anymore. And so we have to build new cultures, new pods that are away from your office that you can create social groups. Now that you don't have the time, that you don't have to commute an hour or 2 hours every day, you actually have more time to do these things. You don't have to get ready. And so there's a lot of changes that happened. And like everyone's experienced probably here, all the meetings or most of the meetings now, yeah, everybody knows how to do Zoom or Google Meets or, all these online tools. And the thing is that, yeah, sure, if COVID, if we go, post-COVID or, maybe all the mask mandates disappear, we're not going to go back to the way things were. And so just a little bit, what is co-working for those who don't know? It's the use of an office or other working environment by people who are self-employed or working or for different employers, typically so as to share equipment, ideas, and knowledge. A simple way I like to put it as is imagine a gym membership, but an office. You don't have to have all these equipments in your house, but then once you can share it, you pay a membership fee and you can share all these amenities. Our focus is nurturing the new professional's lifestyle through space, humanity, and community. And so simply, here's our offerings. We have memberships. You pay a monthly subscription fee. You have access to all our amenities and our services, including Wi-Fi, printing, and such. We also offer offices. Office is actually a big part of it. And so it's interesting because offices in the traditional sense versus offices in a co-working sense, there's actually a lot of services that we offer, such as we can help maintain your space. You don't need an IT person to figure out your printer, Wi-Fi, because we as a co-working space provide that as a service. So you have less need for, I guess, a manpower. So we share the IT expenses, simply put. And another big part of our business is events. So sometimes we have weddings, sometimes we have baby showers, sometimes we have a business networking event, sometimes we have movie showings, and that actually generates a lot of revenue for us. And so our next step in offers is services. And so we are hoping to, I guess, take the next step into changing our business to elevate it to a more higher service. And so we'll eventually have concierge, which can provide all sorts of, if you want to, reserve dinner, need help with anything, just imagine having a secretary. All right. And so co-working, it's not just an office. It's beyond, okay. So what co-working is for us, and it might be different from different locations, is that we provide not just the hardware, but then a more software approach in various forms, which I'll explain after this. We focus our efforts on building a sense of community and culture through 3 major initiatives. So culture, culture working to both find new sources of inspiration and filter out the noise. So we curate culture in various forms. One is through space, furniture, art. Others is through programming and such. And the culture also drives the sense of community and oneness within the members of the space. And so community is actually a very important part of our business, not just our employees, but then we actually have a very selective process in determining who becomes our members, because the members themselves create this chemistry amongst themselves. And we also have a coffee shop in our space called Try Coffee. And Try Coffee allows for members that are non-members to come to the space and join and and partake in our community. And so well-being is actually a big part. Like I said, surfing is a big part of the business or our ethos. And so we offer a lot of club activities. So we have on the bottom, you can see surf club members. So every Wednesday after work, anybody can join inside as a member, or outside members can join, and we all go surfing together. We do beach cleanups. We do artists where members can join and show their art and then share and get feedback from other members. And overall, Aloha is the tying experience out of all these things. And so that's kind of, between all the services that we have, we make sure that Aloha kind of seeps through. And Aloha is a condition, a way of life, an attitude, and a mindset. So what we've seen actually is quite interesting. In the pandemic, we had as everybody in Hawaii knows, we basically lost all our visitors from Japan, due to restrictions. But surprisingly, even though there was a huge drop in tourists, we actually had a lot of, in the co-working space, we had a lot of people moving to Hawaii, some temporary, some permanent. So we've seen, especially from Silicon Valley, from San Francisco, the tech worker type, everything's shut down in the mainland. And then, hey, you can basically live at the same price, but in Hawaii, and if you had that choice, you're not going to the office anyways, why not move to Hawaii where, you can surf, the weather's nice, you can go outdoors, there's no winter, it's a great place for these people to live. And so a lot of times people think that the time difference is actually very limiting. And so what's actually interesting is a lot of the members that we've seen from these places that moved to Hawaii after the pandemic hit, they're actually living quite envious lives from my point of view. And so let's say a tech worker from San Francisco, he moves to Hawaii. He wakes up, maybe 5, a little early, but then if you're to say 9 to 5 in San Francisco time, he'll start at 6 a.m. He'll be done at 2. So, hey, that's and after 2, he can go surf, he can do whatever. He has the whole day ahead of him. New York, same thing, a little earlier, 3 a.m. By noon, they're taking a nap. And then after they take a nap, they have the rest of the day to, do whatever they want. And then we have some people coming in from Japan, and they instead, they have the whole morning to do anything. So they have breakfast, they can go surf, or they can go run or jog. They can have a good part of their day in the sun. And then after that, start their work. And what's also interesting with people that come from Japan or San Francisco is a lot of these people work between Japan and San Francisco. And that actually, Hawaii is actually a really good good place regarding time zones, because the time difference is reasonable going both ways. All right, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much for Leo. So the last but not least, I'd like to welcome Hiroki Ukeda from Reiwa Travel, which is one of the fastest growing tourism startup in Japan. Prior to joining Reiwa Travel in 2021, he served in many tourism businesses such as Relax and Japanese domestic accommodation booking service, and in hotel management in Tokyo. So we had the speaker from Hawaii, and now we have a Japanese speaker to update the Japanese tourists inside. Hi, Hiroki. Can you share your screen and start your pitch?
Okay. Thank you for this pleasure opportunity. It's cold in Japan, but I'll be there wearing aloha. Thank you. I'm nervous after the wonderful presentation by Mitsue-san and Reo-san. Okay. Okay. Now I'll start my presentation. I'm not used to speaking English, so please bear with me. Okay. Hi, I'm Hiroki from Reva Travel. Before talking about my company, please allow me to introduce myself a little bit. Joined Reva Travel as Chief Sales Officer in February 2021. The company itself was founded in April 2021. Before I started working in Reva Travel, I worked at Relax, a domestic accommodation booking service, which is a subsidiary company of the KDDI. Currently, I'm responsible for tour purchasing, sales planning, arrangement operations, and alliance with various companies in Reva Travel. This is Takaya, the CEO of Reva Travel. Eventually, the service he developed became one of the top 4 OTAs in Japan, with 200 members and a total circulation of over 20 billion yen. After his term expired in March 2020, he started preparing to create an overseas travel business as a serious entrepreneur. One of our company's service overseas is to create overseas travel package tours. The major travel agencies in Japan still have the old style of tour operations, systems, and personal management, and they are not efficient. We are different from them because we use the power of digital to solve these problems and launch an overseas travel service that is significantly easy and affordable to operate. Okay, first, mission and vision. Second, service finally members. My company mission is designing a new kind of travel. Vision is creating a digital travel agency that represents the Reiwa era. This is a slide to explain what features of our service and the background behind why we established this service. Here is the current background of the Japanese tourism industry. As Hawaii experienced the same, the Japanese traditional industry as a whole has been hit hard by COVID, and many tourism companies had to close their business. Secondly, COVID-19 has accelerated the move from analog to digital. A lot of existing companies cannot catch up with it. Finally, even though overseas travel is under challenging circumstances right now, it is definitely coming back. This is why we have decided to enter this industry right now. So we had raised $20 million in funding at the end of June 2021, also before the service was launched. We are currently developing apps for iOS and Android. We have a simple UI UX where the users can use at first sight. In order to enhance customers' experiences for overseas travel, we create a lot of touch base to customers such as LINE, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as travel reminders, in addition leading customers to download our app, since overseas is a low-frequency activity. These days, young people use Instagram instead of Google search to find places to go and foods to eat, and they actually visit them. It is essential to make contact with customers through SNS. We also offer a concierge service for VIP customers by communicating with them on a one-to-one basis through LINE chat and other online consultation. In addition, if traveler procedures become more complicated, such as getting a PCR test, making sure it's due days. We can even prepare their to-do list, and the customers use the app's push notifications to inform themselves about important things. The travel industry in Japan has not recovered yet, but we have already started arranging travel and conducted campaign on SNS and other media to gain recognition. This shows our initial target of Japanese overseas travelers. Firstly, we divided all of the Japanese travelers into 4 categories based on how familiar they are with digital tools and overseas traveling. In this graph, the more right they go, the more digitally familiar they are, and the more up they go, the more familiar they are with overseas traveling. We call those people who are familiar with digital tools a digital native, who can use like Twitter and Instagram on their smartphone on a regular basis. Our initial target is those digital natives who are not familiar with overseas travel, especially 20 to 30 years old females. While starting for overseas tour packages, we will expand our business portfolio to include individual airline tickets, individual hotels, and dynamic packages with the ultimate goal of becoming a digital-based comprehensive travel agency. This is our roadmap for the business. The app launch is currently scheduled for December, but we have to be flexible depending on when boats are open in both countries. Anyway, even under this circumstance, we are planning to start our tour packages to Hawaii and Guam. We hope we can expand the area to Europe, the mainland America, and Asia as we see the situation. There are business development members. Many of them are former members of travel agencies such as HIS, JTB, and ST World. One of our member, Yasunaga, nickname is Yasu, who has joined recently, has been working in the land operator business in Hawaii for 6 years. In customer support, we have people who worked at Amazon and Mercari, and we will continue to add strong members. This is our presentation, and thank you for your listening.
Great, thank you so much, Hiro-san. I know like you don't like, you're not necessarily familiar with speaking English, but thank you so much for doing this. So I want to welcome back those other 2 speakers, Mitsue and Leo, and I want to do some Q&A sessions. So I will provide a little bit language support for the Hiroki-san. So I will have like I will translate a question to Japanese and to give it to Hiroki-san. So before the questions coming up, I have one question to everybody. So you guys talking about like industry partners or community and then like customers. I'm interested in more like partners, the industry partners you want to work with. So what kind of partner are you looking for besides the tourism companies? So let me translate a little bit in Japanese. ひろきさん、多分パートナーとかそういう話が出たと思うんですけど、観光業以外で一緒に働きたい会社とか種類の人たちをもしあったら教えてください。じゃあ、三江さんから最初お願いします。In English, please. 三江さん、ミュートです。
English でしたか。
はい、お願いします。
I'll try my best. I'll try my best. Let's see. Because of I'm working at Hawaii Tourism Japan, our partners are various, right? The tourism industry partners, of course, the hotel retailers and restaurants and attractions and airlines and travel agents and all. But new initiative that we are really in, as I mentioned, regenerative tourism, educational tourism. We are really studying about SDGs, Aloha Plus Challenge, how Hawaii's overall goals are, what's the climate emergency, situation is going, each island, what kind of plan they have. So our partners that we are getting information are the research organizations, a lot of different scientific researches or ocean or any type of researches. The organization that we would like to connect because they have data, resources, so we can showcase to Japan market that Hawaii is not the only leisure destinations, the research destination, tech destination, educational destination. There are so many different organizations, both federal and state, and also city and county, have working with the universities, nonprofit organizations. So there's a lot of different depth in research divisions, right? So we are really taking the stories and the case studies that we can introduce to Japan market to change the branding image.
How about tech company that we were talking about the previous session?
Yeah, tech company is really important because in the tourism, as I mentioned, it's going to be all digital marketing online, especially the DNR, which is the Department of Natural Land and Resources, and state are working, creating the online system. Example, Hanama Bay, Diamond Head hiking, or some of the state parks. It's going to be kind of limited in terms of the max number of people can go to certain places. Prior to the visit, they would like to know how many people are there. Is there the opening? Hanama Bay, you have to book advance, even Haleakala, right? So those type of online system, they're trying to connect with all those different organizations because right now is state and city and county, and each private sectors are separate. So state are, especially Hawaii Tourism Authority, putting the RFP. So there is going to be a lot of RFP is going to be out there in Hawaii, and there is a resources because we have TAT, which is a hotel tax, or some other different resources really putting back to the protecting the natural resources. So it is a good timing because the focus is there.
That's interesting. So Leo, I know I've been workshopped a lot and there's a lot of the various people working there. And can you maybe share the example how you guys working with this people from different area? Also what kind of your target for Japanese people to work with or as a customer or partners?
Yeah, I see. So actually, we as a co-working space, and actually it's co-working space in, let's say, the United States and versus Japan, we have a slight different mentality. Actually, a lot of percent, 60 to 70% of people in the US, or actually the rest of the world, go to co-working spaces, not just as a convenient place to work, but it's a place to network and to create business. If you're a freelance graphic designer or a lawyer or accountant, if you go to co-working, those are all potential clients. But actually in the Japanese world, a lot of times co-working spaces are just really seen as places of convenience. So it's close to the station. If you work, it's a nice hub to go to all your meetings around Tokyo or anywhere. And so that's a very hard mentality for us to be able to change that. But what's actually interesting is that the people that come to Hawaii are already have, a lot of them already start out with a different mindset. Like they come to Hawaii and work because, hey, they want to work with people in Hawaii. So they come with the idea of networking. And what we actually can offer is that this is a place where you can actually meet, high level, high educated professionals in Hawaii that can, if you want to expand Hawaii, we have it's like, oh, hey, I want to meet a graphic designer, or I want to meet a marketer. It's like, hey, actually, come to us. We can make an introduction right there. Like you don't really get that from any other situation. You're not going to go up to an office and knock the door, but like if you come to us, like we all have it. And so that being said, what our limiting factor is actually our business allows us to, let's say, get more people into one space, more than compared to a traditional office. The use of space is a little higher. But at the same time, we are limited to space. So an important factor that, important, like, I guess, driver for us, which is actually also a hard thing, is real estate. And so really, the bigger the space, the more people we can house. And, and then we have, office managers, or they're basically people that are there just, specifically to help you and to make all the introductions you need to make you feel comfortable. It's like a whole networking game that we can actually provide, but then without the space, it limits us to only be able to help so much. And then what's also interesting is that eventually, if we expand, we expect different locations. So we also operate a place with HTDC, with the state of Hawaii, called Sandbox. And Sandbox is meant to have innovators. So what we do is we house a lot of, tech related companies. And so by putting them together, they can, the communication is definitely much faster than, setting up a Zoom appointment, writing emails or texting. It's, it just happens naturally. And a lot of times, those natural conversations lead to more business than, all the uptight, business situations. So, the idea is like, we don't have like, let's say, a specific sector. We can say, hey, let's get all these people that work in tech companies together. Let's say, that's all the tourism companies together, and then they can feed off each other. Not, and they're not just as competition, but like, grow, faster, accelerate faster just by being close to each other. That being said, we also, I forgot to mention earlier, but we have partnerships with Engawa in Kyoto and Eat Work Play in Tokyo. So those are other co-working spaces in Japan that basically their members can come to Hawaii, work with us for free, and our members can go there to work there for free. So it's like a free exchange program. So we're also looking for other partnerships like that we can, I guess, work with, just to give people, more freedom that they're looking for. Yeah, right now, there's not much travel between Japan and Hawaii, so we don't see that much. But then hopefully, once the lockdown starts to ease, we're hoping to see more of that.
As Mitsue mentioned in the presentation, Hawaii can be hot for those people working there.
Yeah, you can just come any day. It's actually not bad. If you fly, take a like a nighttime flight, you arrive in the morning. Like it's not so bad. You can go.
But from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you have, you can go, you have the internet on your airplane, so you can even do email on the airplane, and
yeah, that's true.
It's actually even a seamless experience.
Yeah, great. So moving to Hiroki-san. So let me explain a little bit English first. So I know you're a startup, so you a little bit more exploring the relationship with the Hawaii local tourists, like hotels and those tourism industry. What kind of local partners, including the tourism industry, in your case, you're looking for? So, スタートアップなんで、今ちょうどリレーションシップを作られてると思うんですが、観光も含めどういうパートナーをローカルで探していらっしゃいますか？
ありがとうございます。ちょっと日本語ですいません。我々としてはまだまだスタートアップしたばかりというところで、それこそまだ観光業の方ともつながれてない方々っていうのがたくさんいらっしゃるので、まずそこのつながりを作りたいっていうところが、正直ベースなところかなと思ってます。で、かつ今つながれているところに関してはより強固にしていきたいっていうのが、まず第一優先としては大事かなというふうに考えています。で、今回の質問でいただいているような、それ以外のところでどういうところなのかみたいなところで言うと、なんか一つあるなと思っているのは、その現在基本 本的には SNS、さっきもプレゼンテーションであったように SNS でリサーチをかけて、皆さん探されてこられると、なのでよりなんか人の流れがメジャーなものではなく、より個人の思考に合わせた、ニッチな、そういったものとかローカルなものを感じられるようなものに、興味関心が移ってきているのかなと思ってますと。じゃあその中で大事なのはやっぱりそういうメジャーではなくローカルな、情報を得るためにはハワイにやはりローカルなローカルな方々、とつながって、最新の情報や写真であったり動画を得て、それを我々も SNS 上で発信していく必要がある。それが価値になるなとは思っているので、なのでそういったカメラマンさんであったりライターさんであったり、そういった一緒にローカルの情報を届けていけるようなパートナーさんっていうところを、我々としては一緒にやっていけると面白いんじゃないかなというふうに思ってます。
はい。ちょっと訳しますね。So of course, we are the startup. So we just started the company. So the most important part right now is to establish the relationship with the local tourist hotels and other companies in Hawaii. Also, with the existing relationship, we have to strengthen it. But the farther away, what we're looking for is that because our target is more digital native, who kind of like always using the social media, such as Instagram, Twitter. So anybody who has a connection with local that has like footages and local images that can give good message to the Japanese tourists, those are the partners that they are looking for in the future after the establishing the relationship with the tourism industry. I hope I translated very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, okay, so it's almost time, but I kind of like want one more question. Okay, so I think this is a good question because this is like a kind of tourism. So from Hawaii Farm Trails, part of Maluma having a Hawaii initiative is to encourage visitors to give back by volunteering. How does Japanese tourism market feel about this sort of immersive experiences? So maybe like motivating them, how we can motivate them to kind of volunteer or Maluma Hawaii activity. Maybe you Leo, you wanna go first? Mute desu.
Right. Sorry, can you repeat the question again? Oh, sorry, you're muted now.
Okay.
Yes.
Part of the Maluma Hawaii initiative is to encourage visitors to give back by volunteering. How does, volunteering to local, I give back to the local, I think he meant. How does the Japanese tourism market, how Japanese tourists feel about this sort of immersive experiences?
Okay, yeah, thank you. That helps. So us as a co-working space, I guess that's the perspective that I'll explain this to you. But I think as a co-working space, we're not a tour, operator, tour provider, but then actually we are a space run by locals and our members are locals. So actually we are already, let's say, curating the Malama, the respect, to give back to the community already at the local stage. And so it actually gives, if a person from Japan visits us, becomes a member, they can actually, have an authentic experience with the locals. And, hey, it's like, and we do offer, membership services, like, hey, let's all go, beach cleanup, we'll do that. And so just being part of our community, I think can help not just, tourists to really understand Hawaii culture and the Hawaii local story. And I think understanding the story is actually the most important part of, and because it's hard, you're fed this Hawaii, the market, the idea, a concept of Hawaii, what locals think of what Hawaii is and what, tourists think of what Hawaii is quite different. And the narrative is hard to change, but then, yeah, I think we can offer authentic experiences so people really appreciate the local culture and the environment.
Mitsu, maybe you can go next, please.
Sure. US market and Japan market are totally different. I know some of the Malama Hawaii initiative that happening in US market, it doesn't work for Japan market. So what we are trying to do is Japan is already mature destination for us, for Hawaii. Target audience is really wide. So talking about, as Leo-san said that, stories, what's happening in Hawaii, what the Hawaii's people are trying to protect. We have to do the education first. And those stories are more focusing on made in Hawaii product to support the local business, or participate in the beach cleanup to really do some exchange program, to just to attend the attractions that who really into the sustainable attractions and to experience. There's so many different ways, and then so it's really important to let people know how to participate. So example, during the COVID, we did a Support Hawaii program. Especially people don't notice that Iolani Palace or Bishop Museum, who has such amazing resources, have really tough time because all the sponsorship is gone, no tourists, but yet they have to maintain a lot of different facilities and programs. So we did a virtual tour through the online, and people pay for the participation. 100% goes back to those. Those are the one of the example we did for the Pacific Voyaging Society, Hokulea, virtual tour. And so they can actually really put money into the Pacific voyage to keep educating. So there's a lot of different programs that we can ask visitors to participate, but to create those product development is really, really important. So that's why Leo-san, I'm so excited about those type of activities, because the local nonprofit organization who actually provide those programs, so attraction who provide program have language barriers. Guide, we don't have enough Japanese speaking guide who have a knowledge to explain deeper experiences. Or the operation wise, it has to be only 10 to 15 people, or max 20 people at a time, right? That's why we said mass tourism down to niche program, niche tourism. And to have a higher, deeper experiences, we need the technologies, translation technologies, or audio technologies, or guided, technology. Even going to the museum, Iolani or Bishop need to have more 3D. If you have a QR code, can Queen Liliokani comes up and talk about the history of Hawaii, type of technology. We don't have it on the stage. So there's a lot of different ways to participate. Even the Boran tourism, Japan market is not used to Boran tourism, so the Boran tourism is okay. We have 100 students coming from Japan. Could you coordinate the Boran tourism experiences? It's not easy. So, we are trying to work with sustainable coastlines, or we work with Blue Planet, really to create one of the case studies and create a product, and then trying to educate people how to participate. We have to do the pre-education. Those people got to understand what kind of program they are really trying to participate in, trying to protect. Therefore, as Leo-san said, it's really important to really communicate the stories. That's why we are really focusing on media tie-ups, or public relations, talking to digital marketing, talking to our partners to really what is Malama Hawaii is. So the education does start it, and that's the part we need support. And like Leiwa Travel-san, that to create the product development, we need to actually speed up a little bit. So we would love to work together. Thank you.
Right. So sounds like the story, technology, and the education sounds like the key. So lastly, Ukeda-san, so the question is about like 日本人がどうやったらボランティアとかラマハワイっていうコミュニティに還元する活動に参加してくれるかっていうことだと思うんですけど、
はい、
そのことに関して日本人がどうやったらそういうのに参加してくれると思いますか？細切れで言ってくれたら。
わかりました。ちょっと細切れにします。すみません。まずこういったアクティビティであったりというところはすごくいいなとは思ってます。で、ここで書きます。
もうちょっと長く言っていいですよ。
わかりました。が、一方で全員に対してこれがハマるかというと、そうではないなというふうには思っていますと、本当にハワイでじゃあ海ではしゃぎたいとかショッピングしたいみたいなワイワイしたいっていうような人たちに対してこういうことを指しても多分おそらく刺さらないなというふうには思っていますと。
So I think the Malama like Hawaii as in a project, it's such a great project, but at the same time, not everybody would enjoy this kind of program. So targeting is kind of like a very important on this kind of like if you want to increase the number of people who join this kind of program. どうぞ。
で、そういった人たちで、ターゲットを絞って指していく必要があるなというふうには思っていて、で、私の周りにもそういった人たちが言っていると。で、20代と30代であっても、いわゆる言い方がちょっと適切がないかもしれないですけど、意識高い層っていうのが、どういう人たちなのかというと、なんかやっぱり好奇心が強く、あとは休日でも私の周りでも社会活動や、地域貢献、あとは地域創生みたいな、そういった文脈に積極的にやっぱ日本でも参加しているような方で、旅行先でもなんかメジャーなところに行くというよりは、いわゆるローカルを感じれる場所に行ったりとか、ホテルもよりローカルコミュニティを感じられるような宿に行ったりみたいな、そういった滞在をした人たちに対して、うまくアトラクトしていくっていうところが大事なのかなというふうには考えています。
So the wider target is the most important factor to promote this kind of project. I think also how you can share the story with those people, especially we call it customers who is called high sensitive information, high curious people who are mostly 20 or 30 years old people. So Hiroki has a lot of friends like that, and those people are interested in more the things that's kind of niche and local thing rather than just like going to beach and enjoy the ocean. They want to talk to locals, so they want to stay at a kind of hotel where they can contact with the local and they want to learn about. So it's important to target those kind of people, and it started to make the ecosystem so that the people can bring more and more people curious about the story and interactive communication with those activities.
で、最後にマーケティングとしても基本的にやはりそういう感度の高い人たちの周りには絶対感度の高い人たちがいるので、なんかやたらめったらにマーケティングしていくというよりは、まずスモールでもいいので、そういった感度の高い人たちに対してしっかりとまずは来てもらって、それを SNS 等で発信してもらい、そこの派生をどんどん広げていくっていうような、なんかマーケティングの仕方がいいんじゃないかなというふうには感じました。
From the marketing perspective, so instead of like target a lot of people who kind of like old Japanese tourists who coming in, the most important way is to target like a small group who has really enjoying activity, those kind of activity, and those small group can bring more and more people, and there's the real true story, and those as I said again, the creating those like a system and make the bigger impact from the small impact is more important from marketing perspective. Okay, so I think that's all. I mean, we kind of missed 2 questions, but I think it's already past the time. Thank you very much for joining this long events, and thank you for sharing the insight. Okay, so sorry, I'm wrapping up all the event. Okay. So thank you very much to all of the speakers, partners, audiences for joining us today and supporting our Island Innovation Demo Day today. Thank you, I really appreciate everybody for joining this event. And then please remember to answer the survey questions before leave this room. Your feedback is very important for us to improve our future webinars. Thank you so much and have a great weekend. Bye.